Hi, everyone. Welcome to Bad Science Sunday, where we take a comedic approach to debunking bad science information on the internet. And today we are going to be debunking bad creationist arguments with
Young
Dr.
Earth.
Young Earth
Yes.
creationist, okay, YEC claims, with our special guest, Dapper Dinosaur.
Hello. I'm Dapper Dinosaur. You probably know me.
I don't
That's
know.
probably true.
I really do appreciate you for coming on here because I can't imagine you get any views out of it. It's just like gratuitous hat wave. Like, hey,
Look,
you
I
just saw me yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day
it's
before. So, here I am. Kid. We do appreciate you for coming on, though.
well, no, it was nice to be invited, and I mean, if you're gonna have a guest on to talk about young Earth creationism, I can see why you would do one who spends an absolutely insane amount of time talking about nothing but that.
You do, yeah. And what I love about people like you, it's like all the I kind of feel like you're a professional young Earth creationist debunker.
He is.
Literally accurate. Literally accurate. Yeah, that's just
It,
what's happening.
yeah.
But I mean, to the point where like you really have that in-depth knowledge, and what I've been loving about all the doctors and like the professionals that have been coming on lately is like that in-depth knowledge where it's almost like that behind the scenes look at like how do we get here? For me, it's
Yeah,
just like, oh my God, like why would anyone think this? And you guys are just like, well, actually it started over here and now
yeah. There are actually answers to that question. Not many of them are good answers, but they're answers.
I mean they're true, which is
Right.
what we look for here.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, like I was saying earlier, I know that what we have in store tonight, you could probably like debunk in your sleep. I was saying to Vandy, and I'm like, probably, like if he sleep talks, he's probably just been like, "That's bullshit, Hovind."
You're like, oh no, God, and it's six types of evolution. That's not how that works. Abiogenesis and evolution aren't the same thing.
I love that time that he cited a chick tract that said that there were six types of evolution, except he's the one who wrote that part of the chick tract. It's like, dude, you're just citing yourself. What are you
Well,
doing?
Oh my gosh, that
oh,
never gets old. All right, Dapper, would you like to give everybody the your elevator pitch? Who you are, what your channel, what you
Oh
specialize
yeah,
in your
so
channel?
I'm Dapper Dinosaur, as you know. My channel is so it focuses primarily on debunking young Earth creationism. Although there are other stuff on there. I've covered Roger from Mud Fossil U. I've done some other like pseudo history stuff. I did some weird takes on like ancient Egyptian high technology and were the Egyptians actually like shocking themselves with static electricity in order to like get high and have religious experiences. Spoilers, no, they were not.
you
Um,
can't do that.
yeah, I mean you can shock yourself with static electricity. There's just no evidence they were.
As a Van de Graaff, you can't do it. We have tried. I have played with static electricity so much in an evening that my knuckles were blistered from how many times I had sparked on them.
Wow.
Might want to be careful with that. That sounds dangerous.
I Yeah, I mean it's local burning, so it's not ideal, but it's not like going to give you cancer, probably, hopefully.
Well, that's true. Did you know that if you ate like 30 or so pieces of burnt toast a day, you would have a slightly increased cancer risk?
I did not. You would also have a very difficult time telling if you were having a stroke because I mean,
Well,
you're
yeah.
still burnt toast, but
Well, you'd have to check other ways, like seeing if your face is like
yeah, symmetric.
asymmetrical or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Okay. Man, I wanted to ask you something and I could not think of it now. So it'll come to me or it won't, whatever. Vandy, would you like to tell our friend what we have in store for everyone tonight?
All right. So this evening we have a brand new channel that we've not covered before and that I've never heard of before, and that is because unlike normally, this channel has actually fewer subscribers than Maya's channel.
Oh.
I didn't
Fantastic.
think it could be possible.
You don't know how numbers work, Maya. It only has 484 subs, which is
Okay.
in fact a lower number than whatever Maya has, and that is how numbers work.
Yeah, that is, which is weird. It's really, really weird to be a creationist channel. Like, and this is actually by a church, like put up by a church, and I'm assuming for
Yeah,
their ministry.
Hope in Life Kids. Yeah,
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and so maybe they only tell their parishioners about it. I don't know how this works, but it is what is it, directed at children, and I
hmm
since there's not a special place in hell for these people, I am just giving them a special shout out on my channel, and I hope that these kids grow up and succeed with the team band every Monday. So we found a
Okay.
whole playlist of bullshit for you guys tonight.
yeah,
You are
and
welcome.
they have done pretty well with the views. I mean, it's been 2 years, but 1K views. I don't know. I don't
For
know
a
if this was
400
like 1.1.
subscriber channel, that's not bad. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think it's been 1 year. Last time you were on the show, it was September 18th.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
2000,
Are you gonna
2003.
pull?
That's what I was
Are you
thinking about.
Are you gonna pull up the viewership on when he was on last?
So funny story. He was sitting at 1,000 views, which was still higher than almost anything we've done this year outside of our last stream with Dr. Kip. And then we got a shout out from Paulogia, and it shot up another 500. And it was
Nice.
sitting at 1,500 views until recently, and now you're at 1,600 views. So you have the highest viewership on our channel.
Well, I'm flattered.
Yep.
We are grateful.
So
Hey,
yeah,
I
that's what we're
mean,
expecting. That's what we're
Yeah, yeah.
expecting.
We're going for 2,000 this time.
okay.
We'll take no for an answer.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
I hope we get as many as possible because I like it when there are extra options for people to get pseudoscience basically debunked for them, right? Because there's a lot of nonsense out, like a
Yeah.
lot of
there's
nonsense
so
out there,
much.
Oh no,
and
yeah, they will definitely get that coming here. I guarantee it. It and a lot of like, well, yeah, I think probably Tapioca Weasel is helping me with this the most, and the reason I went in quite this direction at all with my channel, but very thankful to both of you because you both played a huge role in kind of my passion for debunking science misinformation on the internet.
well, it's really nice to hear actually, because it's I know in the abstract that what I do has made a difference for some people, and I know it's made a difference for more people than I know about because only some people are willing to actually reach out. But it's always nice when someone actually mentions that they made a difference because it's different just having that abstract
Mhm.
idea in your head versus actually having a real person who you can point to and like that's someone that I helped out with my channel, that person right there. So it's always nice to hear that.
Yeah, sub to Dapper Dino, who worked for me.
All right.
All right, let's go.
So let's do it.
And before we do that, let me give you your scripture verse for this
No,
week. You send
no.
us that scripture in the mail.
Sorry.
Now on with part number 2.
There
Now,
we go. See, I tried to find the spot, but yeah. So we're going to be looking at a few videos in a playlist. I don't know how many we're going to get to, but yeah. So you're in for a treat, chat. It's just going to be rapid fire bingo squares. I wish I had bingo. I don't have bingo.
Oh, how could you?
I don't know. I mean, I made the site and everything, but
Yeah,
oh well.
I know. Actually, it seems like it would be really easy to just fire it up and throw it in the chat, but
Al can do it. Al Trucker could do it, but he's probably going to go to bed soon. So
I don't know, Al. If it's something you want to do, let me know.
I'm
And
not asking you to do that, Al.
Yeah, I mean, Al. I'll tell you what. I will mod you, and it's totally up to you whether or not you would like to do this. And
But everyone will judge you if you don't, is what they're trying to say.
well, Al, Well,
Oh man, I
yeah, Al
put
was
Al
in
on
the
the spot.
hospital a couple of weeks ago, and I believe he's still recuperating. So if he's too tired, like if I killed Al for bingo, I would never forgive myself.
Hmm.
He may not remember how to make a game because you have to like jump through a series of hoops because I'm a bad web designer. So
Al said he's,
anyway,
again, no pressure.
I keep on volunteering Al for things. I'm so sorry, Al. All right, let's let him
1,
go.
2 Jurassic views. There are
So this is the focus of the episode. I want people to keep that in mind. Is that this episode is about Jurassic views.
now on with part number
What does
2.
that mean?
Now, number 1, 2 Jurassic views. There are just basically 2 explanations of the beginning of everything, and they are not really compatible with each other. When we talk about creation, I mean how God brought this world into existence. When we talk about evolution, I mean how this world came into existence without God. These are the basic
Hold
2
up.
explanations.
That is a false dichotomy, sir. Those are not the only 2 options. The world is not divided into Christianity and atheism. That is not how the world works, my guy. I
Okay,
know
but
he would love it if it were, but that's just not how anything has ever worked.
And I also want to dispute that evolution is a study of how the world came into existence without God.
Yeah, it's certainly an explanation that does not make explicit reference to God, but neither does it say that God is excluded in some way,
Right.
right? It's no more an explanation of how the universe came into existence without God than your cookbook is an explanation of how cakes came into existence without God, right? If you feel like there's an ontological necessity for a God to exist in order for cakes to exist, that cookbook doesn't have anything to say about that.
Right. And again, we're not doing religion, so Dapper does not he's not a religion debunker, neither are
Nope.
we. This is just, again, I think last week we had on Professor Parks, who is astronomer. His PhD atomic
I think his PhD is in physics.
yeah, physicist.
It might
We'll
be.
go with that.
Some schools do have like an astronomy department, but it's
He
a
calls himself an astronomer, so we'll go with that.
well, yeah, astronomer.
But I mean, he was explaining last week how, he got all the way to the PhD level and is still a Christian. So his study of
Yeah.
science did not interfere with, his
Yeah.
religion. I work with a lot of Christian doctors, medical doctors, biology majors, public health professionals. I myself was a Catholic 12 years. I don't remember religion being mentioned at all. And I was taught by nuns. Religion wasn't mentioned at all in science class. And we still believed
Yep.
in evolution, the Big Bang, the whole nine. We're not trying to deconvert anybody. I meant to mention that before we got started. But there are a lot of people trying to influence politics on a number of levels because they believe that science is only what's in the way that they interpret the Bible. And I do want to debunk that.
Yeah. One of the things is that no one actually takes the Bible as literally as they pretend to among young Earth creationists, right? Because the
Correct.
thing is, if you did, you'd have to be a flat earther, honestly,
I was gonna say
right?
some of them do.
Well, yeah, okay, the flat
Well,
earthers, I suppose, but there's actually look. Most flat earthers are some kind of young Earth creationist, but the reverse is not necessarily true, right? Like most young Earth creationists are not flat earthers. So, but that's part of the problem, right? You can't actually have this overly literal idea about how the Bible works. For one thing, if you take the Bible that literally, it's internally contradictory, right?
right.
What day did God make humans? Well, if you want to take it literally, it's on 2 different days. Some things as simple as that, right?
So let me
And-
learn you a thing about quantum mechanics, Dapper. Go on.
I feel like things on the scale of humans and days of the week that most quantum effects are relatively minimal.
Fair.
So, but that's the thing, right? So what they actually do is they have certain dogmatic positions that they feel like they have to maintain. Otherwise, it is too iffy for what they consider to be their core beliefs, right? But the problem is that you're already, quote unquote, compromising in myriad different areas. Just add one more. And if that's a bridge too far, well, then, I don't know. Maybe investigate other religions or something. I don't care. So, yeah. I agree.
All right,
let's go.
Also, I just wanted to note, these are also classified as Jurassic views.
What does that even mean?
That's a great question.
They're views that I don't know.
Of how everything came into being. So number 2, let's look at what I call some Jurassic junk. In other words, the basic idea of the theory of evolution, which is absolutely...
So Jurassic junk is the basic idea of the theory of evolution. Is this terminology you're familiar with, Dapper?
No, as far as I know, this is like bespoke terminology just for this one young Earth creationist. This is not anything I've ever heard of from other creationists. Which, sometimes creationists will come up with their own particular to them phrases and whatnot. And, I mean, that's fine, really. People are allowed to have their own special phrases if they want to.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
How do you pronounce this?
What's the Thylacoleo Kennedy?
Thank you. So I've been trying to pronounce his name for quite a while. He says that you are the only creator that pronounces his name correctly. And I was like, all right, next time Dapper comes on, I'm going to have him pronounce. Can you do that one?
So you said
Thylacoleo? Wait, how do you?
He said Dapper said Thylacoleo.
Okay.
I would have said Thylacoleo.
So the thing to remember is that the Leon part is a separate word in its core. That's Leon. It is lion. So Thylacoleo is actually an extinct genus of marsupial macropredator or macrofaunal predator from Australia. They went extinct shortly after the first humans showed up. What was it, like 20,000 years ago or something? Don't quote me on that. I don't actually remember.
Coincidence?
Probably not. Yeah. It turns out that the idea that indigenous people groups just lived in harmony with nature until the white man came is actually just noble, savage, racist bullshit. So
Wow, I haven't been quite that racist. I'm usually willing to just blame all of mankind for savagery. But
it's that sort of like paternalistic form of racism where it's like, oh, look how cute all these savages are with living in nature, and that sounds like a nice thing to cosplay every once in a while we also industrialize the landscape. It's like, okay, actually, they're not really any different from you. And yeah, just like you inadvertently caused like 40 extinctions in the last, 20 years, they were doing that too.
Indeed. And now I understand why you're the only creator that could pronounce his name correctly. All right, moving on.
He did make a bingo thing.
Nice.
He did. He said he would, and he did. Go Al.
What a champion.
Absolutely the opposite of what the Bible teaches about how everything came into being. Now, the word evolution literally means to unroll or unfold. And so
So the etymology of the word evolution includes the Latin verb evolutio, which does mean to unravel or unroll, but the word evolution doesn't literally mean that, because that's not how words work. Words don't just mean what their etymology is, right?
I don't know. A lot of people we cover make that claim.
Well, you cover a lot of stupid people, so...
That is true.
So yeah, basically, the only time it's really useful to talk about etymology is if, one, the entire purpose is just you're curious about etymology, or you find the etymology interesting on its own, or it is in some way a useful mnemonic. Other than that, the etymology of words, or you're doing historical linguistics, but most people aren't doing that. Other than that, though, there's really not a whole lot of reasons to really care that much about the evolution and history of words.
I heard you were a linguist.
You heard a dirty lie. That is incorrect, madam. I am in fact a dirty non-linguist.
General teaching of the theory.
Wait, so does it mean this? Does evolution mean unrolling?
No, so here's the thing, right? The verb that it's derived from means something similar to unrolling. But the word evolution doesn't, right?
Yeah, okay. Well, but that requires to be like not totally simplistic with my thinking.
So like think about like the word corps, like the Marine Corps or like Navy corpsman that gets used in military jargon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the corpse people, yeah.
Right. Etymologically, that's related to the same way that we get corpse, right? It literally means like the physical body that someone has. It's what it's derived from, ultimately from Latin through French. But that's not what anyone means. When you say the Marine Corps, you don't mean the physical body of a particular Marine.
Right.
That's not what you're talking about. But if you go to the etymology route, then apparently that is what you're talking about. Except no, because that's stupid.
Fair point.
So that's all he's doing is he's just conflating. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem.
There is a unrolling or an unfolding over billions and billions of years from nothing that exploded, billions and billions.
Okay, so it's not an explosion. There was no explosion at the Big Bang. That is I'm going to be generous and say that is a misconception.
Yeah.
I suspect strongly that this person has been informed at some point in his life that an explosion is an extremely inaccurate way to describe the Big Bang.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's possible.
You talk about this a lot.
So the Big Bang was an expansion fundamentally of space and time, I guess, but like mostly space. The details of it are not entirely clear to me, and I'm a physicist. But it, like, if you had two things that initially were at rest with respect to each other and had no force between them, the amount of distance between them was just increasing. And that is still happening today. Like, space is just sort of being generated. And the example that is often used is of blowing up a balloon. Like, if you have two spots, then you blow it up, and now they're farther apart, but neither of these two spots moved on the balloon. That's difficult because you're embedding that within a three-dimensional space, and like you're relying on all those intuitions. But it's not an explosion, and it's certain. And the word explosion is also loaded because people think that you can't have an explosion that's like orderly, and it sort of depends on what your definition of explosion. So we all came from nothing that exploded, and that's the other part. Nothing exploded.
Oh, they'll get to it.
Billions of years ago, and became everything that you and I understand today as the material world. So there are about 5 basic things regarding evolution that are taught as a fact.
All right, so you see where we're going with this.
Is he just going to do like this 6 different kinds of evolution, except he's going to skip one?
I guess, but I don't remember which one he skips. The problem is that he always he sets things up and then doesn't really, like, this is stream of consciousness.
Yeah. So here's my guess. My guess is that because people who do the 6 kind of creation thing tend to say, well, I'm okay with adaptation, what other people call microevolution. What he's probably going to complain about is the other 6 supposed kinds of evolution that he doesn't agree with. And so that's why he's saying the 5 basic things that are taught as fact, parentheses, that I don't like, and parentheses, are, and then he'll go through everything except microevolution. That's my guess. I don't actually know.
Yeah, probably. I watched this, and I don't know. Because,
Pretty much all over the world, but there's really no explanation for it. In other words, you have to explain where did the universe start from? Well, they say it started from nothing. There was a big bang billions and billions of years ago.
No.
The problem
so there's nothing about evolution says that, you know what? First of all, nothing about evolution says anything about where the universe came from. Second, if we're talking about the Big Bang, which does talk about that, it doesn't say it started with nothing. We don't have a way to assess what happened at like t equals 0 because we don't have physics for that, as I'm sure Vandy knows. So like
Absolutely.
saying where the universe came from, science can't help with that. And here's the thing: look, if you want to say that a prime mover deity started the Big Bang and arranged the universe in a way that was, I don't know, pleasing to that entity, I don't care. I'm not going to stop you. I really don't. But if you're going to pretend that something about the Big Bang Theory is true that just isn't, like that it means that we all came from nothing, which it doesn't require. I guess it doesn't preclude it, but it doesn't require it. Yeah, now we have a problem.
Oh, Dapper, I believe you are not a T-Rex. Would you like to tell everyone what you are?
I am, in fact, a Ceratosaurus nasicornis, which is, in fact, a North American species of Ceratosaurus. And it is the type species for the genus.
Beautiful. I want to be a type species for something.
Well, unfortunately for you, there's, like, I don't think we're looking for, like, a neotype for Homo sapiens.
Well, what are Adam and Eve?
Well, they wouldn't be the holotype because they wouldn't have been available for study when the species was described. I actually don't know if there is technically a holotype for Homo sapiens.
It's Carl Linnaeus.
Is it actually him?
I don't know, but that would make sense, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, it could make sense. I mean, it seems a little bit egotistical, but I mean,
but why not?
I mean, yeah. Well, who am I to tell Carolus Linnaeus that he's not allowed to have an ego? So, I mean, maybe he's super egotistical and I just don't know about it. I don't know.
Could happen.
Yeah.
In biology, you're not allowed to name things after yourself.
But that's not the same as not being your own holotype.
It's also not a thing in physics. You can totally name things after yourself in physics, okay? And
Congrats.
It's the reason I'm always going to be in my grandfather's shadow. Terrible.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to whip up a new something or other to, ship out to the masses, and voila, you're the new Van de Graaff that generated something else.
Yeah, come up with an entirely new kind of capacitor.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Voila. Anyways, for $2, Doc Dino, welcome back. Welcome back, Doc. We know you've had a really eventful summer, and we're so excited about you. Starting a new life, have like maybe one of the great fossil finders amongst us, and so excited to see what his future looks like. But for $2, he says, "Ooh, are we covering dinos? Room for uno más?" We are not exactly covering dinosaurs. We are full tonight, but we are always willing to have you back, and I will extend an invitation for that. Today we are covering.
Just sort of a grab bag of young Earth creation.
Yeah. It's like all the young Earth creationist greatest hits.
Yeah, well, right now we're working our way through the 6 types of evolution. And as we can see, evolution has to explain how did the universe start from nothing?
Which it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Science, and my understanding is that science doesn't believe in nothing. So, and I don't know.
Not that type of nothing.
Yeah. Like that.
You believe in a vacuum state, but a vacuum state has a lot of interesting things going on in it.
Exactly. So. Thank you. So, I mean, if we were to observe a nothing, then we could see maybe what could come from it. But much like God, you have to prove that there's something from which to attribute the thing, and no one attributes anything to nothing. I've never heard it said. I've heard we don't know a lot. I've heard a lot of theories, some better than others, but I don't believe there is a scientific consensus on what there was before the Big Bang, and correct. I've heard a lot that's a nonsensical statement.
It seems like it is, but then again, since we don't have any idea what things would be like at t equals 0,
mm-hmm.
Right. Any statement about it is complete conjecture at best and nonsense at worst.
Indeed.
What exploded? How did it explode? And there's no explanation. Then they talk about chemical evolution. How do all the substances come about?
Chemical evolution.
It's literally just stellar nucleosynthesis combined with supernovae. That's it. That's all of it. You're done.
and a little bit of primordial early nucleosynthesis that
Okay,
got you up to like lithium and whatnot.
But like, even if we ignore that, we still can get all of the elements that we have today in roughly the same abundance as we have today. So like, if you want to be flippant with it, you can dismiss that entire thing in four words. Sorry, stellar nucleosynthesis and supernovae. That's
Yes.
that's a four-word debunk for that entire point.
And neutron star collision. Turns out you need neutron stars to get some of the heavier.
But those result in supernovae.
Those are in kilonovae.
They're what?
Kilonovae.
I consider that to be a subset of supernova.
Okay, well, see, now we're getting really technical.
Oh God. And I kind of agree with Jeff C. You're being very generous. The ones that call it an explosion are being disingenuous.
Some of them are.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say all of them, but certainly there are some who are making fun of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's more than one kind of creationist out there, right? Like, there are people who are just creationists because they go to a creationist church in a creationist denomination, and they're not spending their time reading creationist literature or scientific literature and looking at what creationists have to say about stellar nucleosynthesis, or like whether or not the orbital mechanics in an Oort cloud makes sense. Like, they just don't care about that. What they want are bite-sized answers, and that's what they get, and that's what they go with. And those people are going to say things like that. And so you can't necessarily say that person's being dishonest. They're doing what most people do, which is to say, for technical matters, they're relying on someone they consider to be a subject matter expert. They're wrong that those people are subject matter experts, but that's not entirely their fault, right? These are people who are propped up as being particularly trustworthy by a social structure that they are very, very committed to. And so you do have to be careful with saying, all the creationists are just being dishonest about this, which is why I'm pretty careful to try to know what the educational background is of a creationist that I'm going to respond to, because that's going to inform how likely I am to attribute, just ignorance versus malice. So like, when Andrew Snelling hides cracks in a rock by sticking people in front of the rock in a photograph, and he's a geologist, I know he knows better. But when, some pastor says, they never found the feet of Lucy, so how do we know these Laetoli footprints are from her kind? I don't think he's lying. I think he's misinformed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
From the periodic table, how did they evolve? They don't know.
Yes, we do. We really, really do.
And nobody talks about, nobody uses the word evolve.
No. Stellar evolution is a thing, but that's also, which is connected to, stellar nucleosynthesis, but that's a pretty big stretch.
It's a pretty big stretch, and that is sort of like a continuous, and that's the word evolve being used in sort of its general sense as a system evolving over time.
Yeah.
Or a state of affairs evolving over time.
Yeah, if you say, hey, let's talk about evolution, most people don't think you mean stellar evolution or the evolution of dance. Most people think you mean the theory of evolution as it's understood by biologists.
Yeah.
Did life itself evolve or unroll and unfold from this Big Bang? They don't know, because there's no observable and provable way to show that it happened. They say it happened, and they say it happened over billions and millions of years, but nobody's ever seen it happen. And
so this is just being lumped into the substances.
Yeah, that's
from nothing.
Weird. Also, I mean, we have seen substances like nucleosynthesis. Like, we know that happens. We've done it in laboratories. We've seen it in stars. Like, this isn't a mystery that we have to wonder about, right? Like, there
are places you can't go because of the nucleosynthesis that we did there.
Yeah. Like this is it's a very bizarre point that he's trying to make, and I do not understand why he is trying to make it. I mean, I guess I do in the one sense, which is that, Kent Hovind made it, and this guy is clearly a disciple of Kent Hovind.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which I'm going to assume in this case, this guy's probably just ignorant, because basically the only person who's well-educated, even for a creationist, who takes Kent Hovind seriously, well, actually, there are none. Anyone in creationism who has any degrees doesn't take Kent Hovind seriously.
I'm not aware of any. Yeah, I'm not aware of anybody who actually has a legitimate degree who takes Kent Hovind seriously.
Carl Baugh still talks to him, but you know what Carl Baugh, where he got his degree?
He got his degree from an offshore school that he founded himself.
Yeah, he just made it up himself, basically. He gave himself a degree.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's worse than Kent Hovind.
That
That
it
is
really
worse
is.
than Ken Hovind.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Kent
actually
Hovind-
significantly worse.
Ken Hovind did have to produce a BS document.
Yeah, he actually did do some work. He didn't just hand himself a diploma.
Hello, I'm Kent Hovind.
He phoned it in, okay? Like, if you go to his thesis,
God.
and you can do this on Dapper's channel, I'm pretty sure it's on your channel. It might have been.
Yeah, you did it. You did a stream where
I
you
did like
went
a 6-part
through.
stream. It was ridiculous.
I mean, and he cites the Bible a lot, and he doesn't even do it properly. In one point,
True.
he's just like, KJV, get title.
Well, the thing is that what he submitted was never supposed to be a finished manuscript. He had a manuscript for a book he was trying to work on, and when he was alerted to the fact that normally you have like a dissertation for a PhD, and that's like a thing, and that if you didn't do that, it kind of doesn't indicate that you actually got a real PhD. So he was basically scrambling. Was like, oh, I've got this. Can I use this? And his school, which I didn't require him to have a dissertation in the first place, and who had already issued him the degree, was just like, yeah, sure. Because they don't care. They're a diploma mill. They're there to make money.
Yeah.
And so last time you were here, you said that people can buy Ken Hovind documents and create things.
I
mean, well,
don't know what you're referencing. Sorry.
Okay, so last time we were here, it was a guy who was talking about, I don't know, just a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, this sounds very Hovind-esque. And you were saying, yeah, you can like actually go to.
Oh, his slides. Yeah,
yes,
he sells his slides. Yeah, if you want
Are
a full copy of his slides. No, he sells them on USB drives.
Okay.
Yeah, so he will mail you a USB drive if you want to, because for some reason Hovind thinks that mailing a USB drive is a reasonable way to transfer files.
To be fair, if you have a massive amount of data, it is still faster to put it all into a whole bunch of SSD or hard drives, put them on a plane or a truck, and ship them.
Okay,
but you need to have like LHC amounts of data.
Yeah, this is Kent Hovind's like 1,000 or so like PowerPoint slides. You could download those very easily if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And there's no proof that it has happened. They talk about macroevolution, that all life starting from soup on planet Earth, billions.
Soup.
Okay, so this is a bastardization of Kent's like even Kent will say that, but he won't like title a slide that. Well, I mean, Kent will do anything.
Well, he'll go with the whole like, life came from soup, but he usually is cognizant enough of like how evolution is supposed to work to know that like the proximal cause of humans, even if his idea of soup were reasonable, wouldn't actually be that soup, right? Because he knows about things like, hominid ancestry and like apes and whatnot. Like he's aware of that.
Monkey. He thinks it would be a monkey.
Right, and to be fair, he'd be right about that. It would be a monkey.
Like real quick. I just need to address something really quick. Hi, mods. I do understand we have a special guest tonight. I trust your judgment completely. Continue, gentlemen.
Okay, yeah, I was I thought there was a butt coming, and I was like, what did the mods do? But
years ago,
no,
that never happened. The Bible says
we have the
God
best mods
created
on the internet, and I trust them completely. With this person,
in his image.
Oh, is it BBH? Is BBH here?
No, I do not trust the mods with BBH. They do know that.
No, that's the one person that you like. We don't trust the mods with. But if BBH shows up, I'll put on the wig.
Who is BBH?
No one. She's no one.
She's my favorite.
That is accurate.
Member. Her name is Blessed Be He, and she.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but no relation to Michael.
From the dust of the ground. Well, then they talk about what they call microevolution, which is really just adaptations in the same kind of animal or species.
Hey, buddy, what's a kind?
Not really.
That's a great
question.
That's a great question.
It is, and it's one that is never well addressed. The closest that creationists have ever gotten to going with what's a kind is their use of statistical baraminology, right? So that's a big fancy word that they made up for themselves, which uses absurdly bad Hebrew. Which, if you know anyone who knows more than a little Hebrew and you tell them the etymology of that word, I promise they will cringe their spine right out of their back. It's really bad, but it's supposed to be the study of created kinds because they think that you can just stick the word he created and the word kind next to each other in Hebrew, and it'll work just the same way that it works in English, which, spoiler alerts, no, Hebrew is not English. They have very different grammars. You can't just do that. But anyway, so what they do is basically they do this this character state analysis between various taxa, and then they plot they use these character states as basically location information in an n-dimensional space, and then they use a distance analysis using n-dimensional vector math to see if there are clusters. And if there are clusters in this n-dimensional character space that are strongly supported statistically based on their data set, then they will conclude that the different clusters are likely different kinds. But the problem is that their data sets are almost always extremely incomplete for a very good reason, which is that when you include as many actual taxa as possible, the distances tend to get much, much smaller to the point that they're no longer statistically significant. And further, evolution predicts a non-zero amount of clustering if you were to do this kind of analysis. So it doesn't work, and even when it kind of works, it doesn't matter anyway.
And it's the sort of thing that, like, what I will give it credit for is it is at every level more. There's more there than like all of the other creationist pseudoscience, but it's
still very little.
You're doing it's basically p hacking.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It is to an extreme degree, and in fact, it's not the only place they p hack. I actually have a video coming. If you're not a member who gets like early access, it won't be coming out for a while. But I have a video where I discovered some pretty serious p hacking.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
so,
pretty intentional.
Fun thing to know about Dapper's channel. If you sign up to be a member or on the Patreon, I think those are the only two ways. Then you get access to all of his membership only stuff, which is like 8 months or some.
It's more like 5 or 6.
Okay, 5 or 6 months of release schedule worth of stuff. If you watched all of it, it's like 36 solid hours at least or something.
I think it's a little less than that. I think it's less than that, but it is a lot. You would struggle to do it in a single day.
It might be impossible without speeding it up.
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
For $2, Jester, Lord of Fools would like to know what kind of dino is smelling.
Oh, he's a Cloacosaurus. Which is just fancy for asshole lizard.
I was wondering.
I was like, isn't the cloaca like the one hole for everything hole?
Literally in Latin, it means sewer.
Okay.
So, for instance, the main sewer line in Rome was the Cloaca Maxima.
Yeah,
I love it.
But one hole for everything outward. At least they have a
they have noses and mouths and ears and whatnot.
Yeah, one-way street.
So he's an assholeosaurus.
Yeah, basically. Or if you think about it from a topology standpoint, like from the mathematical field of topology, maybe dinosaurs only have one whole total.
Can you sum this up in like 1 to 2 sentences?
What, topology?
No. Sorry, Bandy. Chat wants to know if there's any bingo terms. It doesn't have to be. It has to be the video being reviewed, certainly.
Yeah, so generally it's for one thing, I mean, you can play any way you want, right? You don't actually get a prize.
I wasn't ready for bingo, so yeah, there's no actual prizes. It's just kind of fun, playing creationist bingo. But yeah, if there's something that he says, and I'm pretty sure if we're going through if he's like taking his talking points from Kent Hovind, it's going to be really hard not to.
There also should be. If the site is working correctly, which it appears to be on my page, that there are mods. I'm doing it, and I think Al Trucker is doing it. We can call words. For instance, I can call creationist dog whistle, and within the next few seconds on your screen, that square should highlight in a slightly different color
Hmm,
so that it's been called. Um,
that's
and
neat.
yeah, so and then when you click it, it'll turn green. And there's a page in back where the mods can like view all the stuff and they call the words and that's how I get Fearmonger and Jillian to do all my work for me on Dapper Time because the schedule is such that I'm like only able to ever make your Saturday shows and half the time I can't make those.
Yeah, and honestly, while I'm like trying to produce and quote unquote star in my own videos, I don't have the mental energy to also try to run a
Yeah.
bingo. It's like, nope,
No,
that's too much.
Yeah.
I realized that like when I first like brought it up to you,
But
I
your
was like,
chat
oh, this is gonna have to
loves,
be a
yeah, your chat loves the bingo.
Oh, and I really appreciate the effort that you guys go through to make sure that I have a bingo for that.
I would love to say that I'm in any part helpful at all. I remember Jillian like actually hunting me down once saying, Maya, there's no mods. Can you post a link?
Oh,
And I was just like,
oh
oh,
yeah.
yeah, it's Tuesday.
actually, it probably is time for me to add a couple mods.
No, it was my own fault. I'll be
No,
there.
it's not. It's not just that. It's the number of the ratio of
Mhm.
non-mods to mods has
Well, in fairness,
increased significantly.
you have a lot of inactive mods, though.
That's part of it. Yeah,
I'm
right. I need to add a few mods
most of the
because
time
like
one of
the
them.
the in-chat mods are getting to be a little sparse on the ground, and so I probably do need to add some people who I trust to the mod list.
Cool.
All right, sorry.
Evolution at all. Now that does happen, but that's not really evolution.
Also, for the record, we were anticipating that they were going to skip microevolution. Instead, they included it. So we're
Yeah.
gonna
So is it actually 6? Did we count?
so this is number 3. I
No,
so
he did. So he did
no,
chemical evolution. He did the Big Bang. He did
yeah, Big Bang.
microevolution, macroevolution, and he also did
Soup.
origin of
So,
life.
well, this is number 4. Yeah, because soup was the origin of life. So this is number 4.
Okay.
Oh,
That's simply
gentlemen, I don't know. I guess this isn't derailing. We let Blessed be He derail the chat. Why not this guy too? So
Oh my God. Go on.
today's Tangelo's first day in my chat. He thinks that he trusts the science, but his assertion is that the scientific consensus is that there isn't even a plausible model for the origin of life. Science points to God. Now, Crystal was really nice to just delete that comment. Science misinformation in the chat is usually worth 5 minutes of a timeout. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, you should probably just shut up. But would you like to, either of you or both, take turns, I don't really care, explain to Tangelo why that deserved a timeout for science misinformation and his assertion that the scientific consensus isn't that there's a plausible model for an origin of life. Science points to God is false.
So, look, as far as science pointing to God, that's a subjective thing for you, as far as I'm concerned, right? Like any metaphysical conclusions that you draw from science are yours to draw, and I'm perfectly happy for you to draw whatever ones you want. I don't really care. That's not my shtick. However, I will say that while we do not have a definitive model that we can say this is exactly how abiogenesis occurred on Earth, we have plausible models for essentially every step. And it's sort of like this, right? Suppose I were to visit Maya and drive over there, right? You're aware that there's probably thousands of different routes that I could have taken with different side streets and highways and trains and all sorts of crazy stuff, right? That I could have done to get to Maya's place. And the fact that Maya doesn't know which one I took isn't an indication that I didn't get to her house. And that's the situation we're currently in with origin of life stuff, right? We're in a situation where it's like, we don't know exactly how it happened, but we have multiple reasonably plausible options for every step. And there are still certainly unknowns, but I mean, that's science. Science is full of new things to learn. And so while we do not have a 100% accurate and complete knowledge of the origin of life, we have a lot of very plausible models for pretty much all of it. And saying that we don't have any, we still have open questions. Yeah, welcome to science. That's every field of science. If you want to reject a field of science because there are open questions in it, guess what? You just rejected all of science. Congratulations. But then again, what do I expect? I mean, this is a man who thinks that the Shroud of Turin is a good argument for the truth of Christianity. So, who also sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Andy, would you like to add anything?
I wanted to make sure at the outset that this is the real Otangelo and not a faux Tangelo.
No.
Well,
He
the thing
sounds
is,
just like himself.
here's the problem, though. A good enough... basically, if you just say the stupidest things imaginable about the Shroud of Turin and irreducible complexity, you will sound like the real Otangelo Grasso. So,
Oh, yeah. And he can't help himself. Prove it's a fraud.
dude, I tell you what. You prove the opposite to all of the actual historians and archaeologists and other scientists who've actually looked at it and who are in the scientific consensus. That's who you need to convince. It's not me. When you convince the people who are actually specialists in the field, then let me know, and I will take a look at their retractions and their statements, as well as yours, that convince them, and I will change my mind. Look, I would think it would be pretty damn awesome if the Shroud of Turin were actually a first century magical painting of Jesus on his own burial clothes. That'd be freaking awesome.
That'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm. But you've got your work cut out for you in terms of convincing anyone who knows what they're talking about that that's the case. And so, yeah, it's not me that you need to convince or to have anyone demonstrate anything to you. Go talk to the actual experts.
I mean, including the people who created it. When it was sent to the Pope, it was said that it was a forgery. So
yeah,
I don't.
There's that too.
I don't understand what the.
There's a reason that it's never actually been declared a relic by the Catholic Church, right? It's because it was always of dubious origin. And look, this is the Catholic Church that was ready to say that like Jesus had like 80 foreskins, right? They're not exactly super skeptical when it comes to relics. And even they were like, look, you're allowed to venerate it if you want, but we don't think it's legit.
80 foreskins.
I made that number up, but there were far more than one purported holy foreskins of Jesus floating around medieval Europe.
It reminds me of that MS Paint like animation, flash animation that starts with like Washington, 12 stories tall, made of radiation. Anyway,
it's a very accurate depiction.
Yeah.
An adaptation in a particular species or group of living things that adapt to their environment. That's not evolution. That's not a monkey turning into a man or a fish turning into a
Men
dinosaur.
Are monkeys. Just
indeed.
Here's the thing. Okay, there are two senses in which we use words referring to animals, right? There's the colloquial sense, in which case there's really not much concern for taxonomic integrity or for taxonomic meanings, right? But if you want to have a discussion about evolution and you want to do it with common terms, then you are going to have to align those common terms to the closest possible taxonomic meaning, right? So when you say monkey and you're discussing evolution, especially if you're going to be antagonistic towards the science, which you're allowed to do, that's fine. But if that's what you mean, then you are going to be referring to anthropoidia when you say monkey, because that is the closest taxonomic group that can be mapped onto the concept of monkey. Now, if you're just talking about, everyday language, you can say humans aren't monkeys and they aren't apes, because in everyday language, those humans are usually excluded from those categories in people's minds. And that's fine, because that's everyday language, right? Everyday language does not have to correspond tightly to biology. It's okay. But if you're going to be talking like this guy is about evolution as a scientific idea, then I am going to interpret your use of common terms as if they were the closest available actual taxonomic term. And so when you say that anthropoids, which is what you mean by monkey in this case, turned into humans, I will point out that humans are still anthropoids, and that is a transition that doesn't even really make sense to talk about. You could say they turned from basal anthropoids into derived hominins. That's fine. That's true. But that's a whole lot more nuance. Because one of the things that creationists always misunderstand about evolution is monophyly. And the reason that they misunderstand it is actually because much of Christianity is actually Neoplatonism with like Jesus on top of it, right? So it's actually a surprisingly useful framework for understanding creationism is Neoplatonism. So in Neoplatonism, there's this idea that there's this realm of ideals, and that we only recognize conceptual category, or well, the reference to conceptual categories because there is an ideal conceptual category for that thing. That those things that we call by that name are to some degree participating in, right? So there's an idea of the cat, and there's an idea of the dog and the monkey, and that we recognize animals as being in these categories by the degree to which they correspond to the idea of such things. And that ultimately, this realm of ideals is, in some senses, more real than the physical universe that we inhabit. Now, most Christians don't go that far as to say that there's this idea of the ideals is more real than the physical world. That is not something from Neoplatonism that has really caught on much in Christianity. But the idea that we can divide things, including biological organisms, into these conceptual categories that are in some way real and not something that humans made up, and that they are distinct in very important ways such that you can't really cross from one to the other. That is how creationists conceptualize biology. And evolution says, no. Essentially, Neoplatonism cannot be used meaningfully in biology because we have an entirely different conceptual framework for how lineages work. And that's why you'll get creationists saying things like, well, if evolution is true, things can change between kinds, by which they mean things can slowly morph from one of these ideal categories to the other. Well, then we should see intermediates between what I consider these various ideals. Like, that's how you get things like the crocodile, right? Because there's an ideal of the crocodile, there's an ideal of the duck, and if evolution says they're linked, well, the way that I conceptualize that is by something that's half crocodile and half duck. And so that whole thinking, Neoplatonism, was very useful to early Christian theologians who were trying to push back against, Roman pagan authors who were writing against Christianity. But here in the 2024, when applying it to biology, Neoplatonism has long since outlived its usefulness for Christians, and is in fact now just holding them back. So there's my rant about philosophy and how it applies to Christianity, and more specifically young earth creationism. Yay!
Yay. No, we love a good, what do you call it? A topic-focused rant.
Yeah. And actually, the idea of importing things like Aristotelian thinking and Neoplatonic thinking is especially relevant in Western Christianity. Western Christianity, for a very long time, went really hard into Aristotelian and Neoplatonism.
Yeah. It was the thing that really caused, I think, Galileo a lot of issues.
That's part of it. Yep, it was because a lot of especially Catholic doctrine is based on Aristotelian thinking, and Aristotle had a model for the universe, and so that was a pretty well ingrained model of the universe. Now, to be fair to the Catholic Church, they were open to heliocentrism, and in fact, some of the people who were present at the trial of Galileo had given Galileo friendly hearings and were fans of his heliocentric model. So the trial of Galileo was not over heliocentrism per se. It was over his excessively confident claims about heliocentrism, given the fact that his math actually didn't work as well as other cosmological models that were being in use at the time. And so there was a whole thing with like him lying to publishers, saying that he'd had his book cleared by censors, which he hadn't. It's a whole complicated thing there. And if you want to say, hey, the Catholic Church shouldn't be in charge of which books can be published and which ones can't, I agree with you. But if we want to pretend that that's not what got him in trouble, well, then we're lying to ourselves.
So really quick, I do want to thank two people, Kentucky Atheist for the Obigon. So the chat has decided they've had enough of Tangelo and has begun to pay for. This is something we've been doing with Blessed Be He, because I like her, but the chat fucking hates her. So
I don't think I've actually interacted with this person.
No, I don't think I've seen them on your channel for more than small periods of time at most, if ever.
Okay.
So I said that I would not look at Tangelo's chats because Tangelo is too distracting, and I told the mods, do whatever you fucking want, because I can't. And so the chat was like, oh, Maya's not paying attention to me, I'll make her. So we get the one $2 for Obigon, and then from Jester, Lord of Fools, $2. Big Tangelosaurus Rect, which is another $2 for Tangelo to be gone. So you guys can all thank Crystal, who timed out Tangelo for 5 minutes. And also Dragon of Truth, who I'm like, when I first saw this, I was like, how did you find me? And what do you call it?
Wow.
He's had a couple of questionable comments, and
well, there won't be any
I don't
more.
think that this gets addressed here. I don't think they go into, because I know, is it Hovind or is it AIG that says that Darwin was racist, therefore evolution is bad?
Both.
They both do, yeah. I mean, look, by modern standards, Darwin was racist. Let's not mince words, right?
Everybody was.
Yeah, by modern standards, slaves were racist.
Yeah, every white person, right?
And most of the black people, cause it.
No, because most black people were still living in places like Africa, and were not widely.
I meant in the United States. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because if they weren't, it's a good way to get beat.
Well, that's being performatively agreeing with the white supremacist versions of racism. That's not actually being racist yourself. There's a difference between performing your acceptance of white supremacy versus actually being a white supremacist. And in the case of people who are being oppressed by white supremacy, your performative acts in accordance with that do not count as you being white supremacist. Now,
you were correct.
White people being performatively white supremacists versus actually being white supremacists, that's a distinction that I think doesn't make any sense. So if you were white doing quote unquote performative white supremacist, you're just a white supremacist. I don't have a whole lot of time for that idea that there's a difference there. But yeah, if you're currently being oppressed by white supremacy, you being performative, yeah, no, that's fine. You're just trying to get by, man. You're just trying to get by. Let's hit play on the video.
I was about to say
various different things.
I don't want to talk about white supremacy. It's going to make me sad.
When you really look at it, the sum theory of evolution is this: 20 billion years ago, nothing.
We're about to hear the sum theory of evolution.
Oh, good.
This ought to be good.
It's about. So when you really look at it, the sum theory of evolution is this: 20 billion years ago, nothing exploded in a big bang. Chemical substances came from nothing
like 14,
exploding.
But okay,
the
whatever.
universe came from nothing exploding and expanded, and then some primordial goo randomly came to life on a lucky planet that happened to be just exactly the right distance from the sun, and 4 billion years later, here we are today as supposedly intelligent human beings. We have no purpose, no meaning, and no...
Okay, so there's a whole bunch there. First of all, the idea that any of this precludes the idea of a personal creator is nonsense, right? It doesn't require necessarily such a being, but it doesn't also preclude such a being, right? Evolution could be true, and there could be a god, a personal god. There could be a personal god who incarnated part of his triune nature in first century Galilee by being born to a virgin woman through a miraculous conception in the person of Jesus Christ. Like, all of that is still a possibility if this is true. So there's that. Also, he's getting the dates wrong. Like, dude, it's been a while since we had such a bad estimate.
Yeah,
that
20 billion is old number. It's an old number.
It's an old number, and it's very round for the reason that our estimates weren't very precise.
Yeah, it's round because it was better than 10 billion and better than 30 billion and probably a little bit better than 15 and 25, but...
Yeah, it's like, astronomers like to round pi squared to 10.
That's a very, very useful. It's even closer to G, little g, 9.8 meters per second. It's almost like it's. Sorry.
It's fine.
It's handy.
Look, it is, right? But it's also wrong, but that's okay, because
Yeah.
the thing is, you can be wrong as long as you're close enough to being right in terms of calculations, right? It's why
Yeah.
we don't always carry out to the last possible digit in all our calculations, right? It's because, if all you have is 4 significant figures, then why are you carrying forward like 8 different decimal places in your calculations? Just stop that.
No.
Just don't do it.
You should carry, if you have 4 significant figures in all of your parameters at the start, you should probably carry 6 of them around internally.
Yeah.
Because if you only carry 4, it actually will add up, and you will be off by more than one.
But you don't need to do 8.
8's probably too much, and certainly like 30 is too much. Like with computers, you can just put it into a double, and that it doesn't matter. But Maya's sitting there like, well, what are you guys talking about? I'll play. I'm sorry.
Math.
Oh, no.
We have a purpose.
Yeah, we have a special porpoise that would like to be recognized. Welcome, porpoise. And for $5, a sinister porpoise says, "Which creationist is making me wonder if he and it's almost always a he is Turing complete tonight."
Is it Otangelo? So here's the thing.
These people.
I don't actually think there's a big gender bias in creationists overall. What I think there is there's a big gender bias in how many creationists who are women are also willing to go and get involved in these arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I happen to know that there are a lot of women who go to creationist churches and accept creationists, talking points and whatnot, right? They're pretty common, actually. But most of them aren't the kind of people who are going to become, like, cringy debate bros.
Right.
And, like, yeah, that's that's a pretty big distinction, right? Because creationist versus specifically creationist debate bro, basically, from what I can tell, most creationist women are smart enough to not bother with that. So yes, I am declaring now that I do believe that creationist women are usually smarter than creationist men, which is why they don't bother.
Fair enough.
No value because it was all a big accident. And by the way, that is your keyword, value. Our value comes from being created in the image of God.
I also hate the word
People often
accident,
look around
right?
this world.
Accident?
Yeah, so accident implies something that was unintended by an intelligent agent who is now dealing with it, right?
Okay.
Right? Like when you say you had a car accident, you don't normally include like 2 cars that no one cares about that happen to like run into each other in a junkyard because one of them didn't have like the parking brake engaged, right? Like no one calls that a car accident, right?
Right.
You call it a car accident when it affects a person.
Right.
When there was an intention that was like not realized, and
Exactly.
a different thing that nobody intended was realized and would have explicitly not intended.
Right. Someone had an intent, it wasn't realized, and said something else was realized. Like you wanted to go to the store, instead your car collided with a different car, and now you have a car accident. So just the phrasing accident implies a level of intentionality that is not warranted by the science, even if you want to argue that maybe it's true anyway. Okay, great. But like the other thing is, of course, if there is an intelligent agent who set up the universe to use evolution to, complete their aims of creating the world they wanted, well, then it's not an accident. Even if it happened in ways that are naturalistically explicable, it's still not an accident. So there's no situation in which accident is a good way to describe this situation. Because either you're implying an probably absent intentionality, or there is an intentionality, in which case it wasn't an accident anyway. It's just naturalistically explicable.
Yeah, I mean, when they start this shit with me, I'm just like, was the storm last night an accident?
Ultimately,
what's your definition?
If you think God is ultimately sovereign over the universe, then there should be no such thing as an accident, even though you can explain the storm in terms of, like pressure systems and naturalistic explanations.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is like, okay, when you talk to debate bros on the internet, which is why they're usually who I'm interacting with, at least.
Sorry.
They're in a well, I mean, because like I don't go to like, you know, debate channels. Usually I'm sitting in a friend's channel minding my own business, and then, you know, Christians walk in like, hey, look at all these idiots that believe that evolution is real. And, you know, it's like, come on, let's flush their heads down the toilet or whatever. Like that's the energy they give off, right? They do know enough to where it's just like, okay, you understand that natural things happen, right? So we could have had, you know, the expansion of the universe could have happened just as naturally as the creation of the storm.
Right.
They don't like that, and they will show that by quickly moving the goalpost, obfuscating, you know, things such as, you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. Look.
But like they do get it. So
Mhm.
yeah, when I start hearing things like accidents, it's not. I can tell by the way that they answer that question where they are on
Yeah.
the whether or not they're being genuine in their argumentation. Like, you know, well, I heard my pastor say this, and so this is what I'm supposed to think, and I never really truly thought about what else it could be. In which case, I'll let down my guard, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about this, because this is what the science is saying. This is you know, like, let me help you still man your opponent's position, as opposed to, you know,
When was the
some
last time you
debate bro
actually
trying to
heard?
give me a noogie.
Well, when was the last time you actually heard a creationist successfully steel man evolution? Because I don't think I ever have.
Okay,
The
so
closest
I
would be,
didn't
the closest would be
say,
Peter.
yeah, I didn't say they did. I said, let me help you try.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't think this is a failing on your part. I think it's this. The problem is there are certain ideas where if you can successfully steel man the position, it is virtually impossible to not hold the position.
Right, exactly.
And
Exactly.
I've
evolution,
Exactly.
yeah, evolution
I've
is one of
heard.
these.
Yeah, I know. I've heard Gutsick Gibbon articulate the similar thought, which is like if you sit down and actually think about what actual evolution is actually saying, it's just not that hard to
Yeah.
understand. You have to believe other sort of bigger things, or at least keep them open. As yeah. Anyway, we're close to the end of this one.
World and wonder why there's so much violence, so much cruelty, why people seem to be so ugly and mean to one another so often, so much crime, so much violence. Well, really,
What?
when you're taught
Okay,
that you're
this
an
is
accident,
pissing me off a little
What?
bit. Here's the thing, my guy. You are a member of a religion that does not have a clean record when it comes to treating people well. Now, that does not mean that Christianity is necessarily something about treating people poorly, right? Like, I don't think that that's true. I
Mhm.
think there are plenty of people throughout history and today who have been very, very generous to people, very kind to people as a result of what they feel like their Christian religion is teaching them to do.
Mhm.
However, it is also inarguably the case that people have used Christianity as an excuse to do some of the most horrendous shit imaginable. So, and it's not like Christianity is unique in that. Lots of things have been used to do things like that. But holy crap, dude. If you want to blame an ideology for causing people to act in evil manners, you don't get to have a pass for Christianity just because it's an ideology that you like. That's not how this works. So I really don't want to ever hear from creationists like, well, you know, look what these evil atheists did. Oh, great. Lots of atheists have done all sorts of horrendous shit, and some of them have even used arguments about atheism to excuse some of it. Fine, great. Christianity doesn't get a pass on that.
Yeah.
So, sorry. And also, I don't think that that's a good way to figure out what's true or what's not, is which ideologies have inspired people
Yeah.
to do bad things. Because here's the thing, that's just an argument from consequences. That's fallacious.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's a bingo square, by the way.
There you go.
And the other thing that you're bringing up, which this is intrinsically, is that this is also a no true Scotsman argument, which is another bingo square. And with that, we have our first bingo winner tonight, and guess who it is?
It's Angelo.
No, it's not. It's not Otangelo. It's actually Al Trekker. Congratulations, Al! Keep playing. You don't refresh your card. That's not how. Yeah.
Yeah, get a blackout. That's the next
Yeah,
thing.
get a blackout. That normally happens on Dapper streams.
Oh, it happens so much.
Yeah, a fearmonger is a little bit more lenient with or generous with the bingo squares than I would be, but that's okay.
Oh, can you explain the keys? Are we doing keys? I haven't seen any keys, or maybe are people just not thinking that anything's that stupid yet?
No. We did call one the mega stupid. I think the keys are a thing where there are certain people, the bingo like oligarchs, but really it's just kind of an amorphous group of people in chat. If a bunch of people agree, yes, this is sufficiently stupid to call this bingo square, then we call the bingo square. But you have to have multiple people. It's like you need to have multiple people using the key on the nuclear submarine to like launch the missile. I don't know anything about submarines.
I know that I was asked if I wanted to be on a submarine, and I was like, no, I feel like ships should not sink on purpose. They should float on purpose. So I will choose not to be on a submarine. But thanks for the offer.
You don't want to be in a tiny little steel tube of death where you have to drink your own recycled pee?
And where I have to share my bed with some other rando guy? No.
And possibly
share
your bed with a wall.
I was in the Navy, but guess who else slept in my bed? No one.
Okay.
I had my own bed. I mean, I called it a rack, but like whatever, it was mine. No one else slept in it.
I don't think you understand the purpose of going into the Navy. Isn't that where all the...
in the
Never mind.
Navy. Anyways, only ballistic only ballistic missile submarines have those keys. Attack submarines do not.
That's true because attack subs don't. Well, attack subs don't have nuclear weapons, so they don't need nuclear weapon keys.
Oh yeah, and who could forget about buoyancy
and density?
Flat Earth. I mean, Earth is flat.
Yeah, I'm making fun of Andy, and as is Al Trucker. All right, let's go to the next one.
Okay, let's do it. You see how fast that was?
Like lightning.
All right. This one does have chapters, so we're going to go straight into the here. Yeah.
Woo.
So, Jurassic Smarts is the... Do you remember, by the way, the last one was supposed to be Jurassic something? It was also Jurassic Smarts?
I think, I think it's the Jurassic Smarts series, but...
Yeah. I got to be honest, I kind of like that title.
Yeah, that's fair.
Look, I am one to give credit where it is due, and if Creationists, managed to make a good pun or whatever, I'll admit it. Look, I'm the guy who said, you know what? There's actually even a Ben Shapiro joke I like. Because at one point, he described The Shape of Water as grinding Nemo, and I was like, you know what? God damn it, Ben. That's a good one. I hate it that I like it, but you know what? That's a good joke.
See, I just think of Ben Shapiro as a joke.
Well, I mean...
and roll with it, but I hear you.
There is that, too, but like... When he described that movie as grinding Nemo, I was like,
I never saw that movie.
My favorite Ben Shapiro as a joke is when he just couldn't believe that women get wet.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
That was so embarrassing.
That was.
I
remember I love that he was like, my wife said that there would be some kind of medical conditions. Like, oh Ben, you don't realize what she just did.
Oh man.
Oh
man, but the Twitter memes. Mwah!
The other thing I will give this channel credit for is, as far as low budget or low effort, I think animation goes, this is pretty good. Like, because they're animating for a stream of consciousness rant.
Yeah,
which is hard to do.
Well, it's not if you already have a rant recorded.
That's true, but you're right. It's not hard. It's hard to. It's annoying to do, I guess.
I love it when I get two dancing fuckers in the show at once.
Sorry.
And the basic meaning of evolution. Now we're going to start looking at some of the evidence. See, the people that believe in creation and the people that believe in evolution both look at the same evidence, but they come to very...
No, they don't. Look, it's very obvious from looking at creationist literature that they don't, because they've routinely ignore relevant data. But also, some friends of my channel, RJ Downer and Jackson Wheat, have actually done a survey of creationist literature, which they're still working on. They're working on a second volume for it.
Is it in here? Is
Yeah,
it
it's
this whole thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the rocks were there by RJ Downer and
copy,
Jackson. Yeah.
my copy has a signature from RJ. So
Take that, weasel.
yeah. Anyway,
I
one
have
of
a
the things
Dapper shirt. And a cup.
that's pretty cool. So one thing that they found in their statistical analysis of this was that on average, in any given field relevant to the creationism, relevant to the disputes creationism has with science, creationists on average ignore approximately 90% of the data in that field.
Like I can't confirm or deny it, but it sounds right.
Well, to be fair, I am relying on their analysis. But yeah, that is the estimate that they managed to come up with, was that approximately 90% of all the evidence in any given relevant field to creationism is ignored by creationists.
Well, cheers to that.
Yeah.
Oh,
look at that.
Oh man. You know what? I have one of those. It's downstairs.
I don't have the blanket yet. My understanding is that the blanket is canonically the best piece of merch available on your merch store.
That's what I hear.
Honestly, Ben bought one, and it is
it's
really nice. It really is. And I look, I know it sounds like I'm just saying that because I want people to give me money, and to some extent, yeah, I do want you to give me money. It is really nice, though.
Yeah. No, I remember you first got your merch store, and I got a mug, and I posted it. Bent got the blanket
it's in the background
later,
of
I think,
the videos,
and he posted it. It's good quality. The
it really is.
The pixels or whatever. What do you call that? The details.
In part, that's because I made an 8K resolution image to upload to this website.
Way to go! Yeah, the quality really came through there.
Well, the impressive thing for me with the quality is that his blanket hasn't faded. It's been years and many, many wash cycles because the dogs like to lay on it. So it's gotten a lot of wash cycles. Wow. And yet it is still really vivid. So
that's impressive.
Yeah. To me,
I go through the coffee mug at least once a week, so nice. Can confirm through many wash cycles. Looks like I just got it yesterday.
Well, thanks, Teespring.
Different conclusions about how things have come into being as we see them today. Now, number one, biology is the study of living things. It's a compound word. It's made up of the word bio, which means life, and logi, which means study.
Yeah, so
we all understand that.
But
that's true. Okay, you're right. That actually is legitimate. You're right. I withdraw that complaint. That actually is a useful thing that maybe they would have learned from this.
Yep. They would have learned the etymology of the word biology, which is not nothing, right?
Biology is the study of life or living things.
Yeah. What is this? Is this what type of dinosaur is this?
Number means life, and logi, which means study.
This guy.
I mean, it's an attempt at a T-Rex.
Okay. Are you just saying that because you assume that's what they intend? How do you know it's not an attempt at a Ceratosaurus?
Well, for one, if you know what a Ceratosaurus is enough to attempt to make art of one, you're going to include the horns and at least 3 fingers. And this has neither horns nor a third finger. Instead, it has 2 fingers and no horns.
You mean the nose horns?
Well, the nose horn and the brow horns.
Can we blow up? Can you blow up a Dapper so we can see the nose horns? Because
there's only one nose horn.
Oh, and the brow horns.
Yeah,
the face horns. Yeah, right there.
As good as you're gonna get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very clearly an attempt at a T-Rex. The arms are too. Look, the problem is it's a Jurassic Park inspired rather than a paleontology inspired T-Rex. So it doesn't have the bits of keratin that we now have really good reason to think were on various parts of the face. The arms are too widely set apart. The position of the wrist is wrong. So it's not a very accurate T-Rex, but it's a T-Rex.
Where are the feathers? Where are your feathers?
So actually, we have extensive skin impressions for Ceratosaurus that covers more or less the entire body, and we know that in fact Ceratosaurus did not have feathers. Also, when it comes to T Rexes,
Fuck.
yeah, when it comes to T Rex, we do have skin impressions from various parts of an adult T Rex, and none of them show feathers. But unfortunately, they're also not from places that would be most likely to have feathers if adult T Rex had feathers. So I don't personally think that adult T Rex was likely to have feathers for a few reasons, but I can't rule it out. It's possible that an adult T Rex should have feathers. I don't know.
Like, you mean it's possible that they should have feathers as a general rule, like as their like a coat of feathers, or
Well,
you mean it's possible that they have a few somewhere?
if T Rex has feathers, it would have been along the outer thigh and along like the neck and the back and the tail.
Okay.
But those are exactly the places where we don't have good skin impressions. So it's like, well, I don't know.
Okay, so Bree from High Side would like to know if you think that you can take on a Carnotaurus.
Carnotaurus 1v1? No. Maybe in like a sufficiently dense woodland where I can use additional mobility, because it doesn't seem like Carnotaurus had a whole lot of turning ability based on their limb proportions. But in a stand-up fight in open terrain, no, I would lose.
And Doc Dino would like to know, I may have found a Ceratosaurus tooth out here, heavily weathered though, and I can't send it to you, unfortunately.
That's okay. I make my own.
All right, so how are you doing? I know that usually you stop after an hour to like refill a beverage or anything. You good?
I still have some of my beverage left.
All right. Let
Boom,
us know if
boom.
you need a break. Moving on. Or starting up.
To try to prove the theory of evolution. Here's some examples, just a few. People reason that monkeys look and act somewhat like humans. Therefore, we must have evolved from monkeys because we're a higher life form than monkeys.
Is that what we think?
No, that doesn't even mean anything. There's no idea of higher or lower life forms in evolution at this point. That's a way that people used to talk in like the mid 20th century and before, but we don't use that language anymore. We're even trying to move away from saying primitive versus advanced because it seems to be an emotionally charged or loaded language.
Yeah.
And we're now preferring the term basal versus derived because it has less emotional baggage to it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
if you
but
want to say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Derivative is already an insult in like the art world, right? Like if your art is derivative of somebody else's art, like that's not necessarily a good thing.
Look, there's no perfect way to express these ideas.
Yeah, I mean, in psychology, that happens a lot, where words are constantly changing because as soon as anything mental gets into common parlance, it takes on derogatory connotations, and then
It's the euphemism treadmill, and I think that, like, frankly, right now that kind of seems to be how language works. And so once your preferred term has become a slur, you're gonna have to just get over it.
Look, the euphemism treadmill has been here for a very long time. It's not going anywhere.
It's not going away anytime
part
soon.
of language.
It maybe we'll be able to make it like slower, like eventually basal and derived will, because
and then we'll find new words.
The nice thing about derived is it'll be around longer because derived has a negative connotation in derivative, but it means in this case the thing that people would associate with advanced or higher. So those things, those kind of cancel each other out.
Hey, here's a fun fact. You know the word bunny?
Bunny? Like a rabbit?
Yep.
Okay. Cute little rabbit.
That is a euphemism.
For?
Well, it's actually, oddly enough, it's a euphemism for bunny that became a standard word, but it was created to avoid the original word, which was Connie, which sounded way too much like a slang word for vulva.
Well,
so the speakers are like, I don't want to sound like I'm talking about vulvas, so I'm going to change the first letter of this word.
That's not a Sunday conversation, so we will see you next Tuesday for that conversation.
There you go.
There we go.
Wow. And
I did that
now
well.
it's just like I would love to know the number of Americans who even know what a vulva is.
I was going to say I hope it's a whole bunch, but then I realized it's almost certainly not. So I
Right, right.
My
That-
understanding,
That's so
based
good.
on watching Roger, is that it's a species of cave.
yes, yeah, that's correct. Well, no, 'cause he
Or
says
something that occurs on Jupiter.
That too. Yeah.
Could be, could be.
Doc Dino says, "What's your favorite?" God damn it! Why do you do this to me? Abyssosaurid.
Abyssosaurid.
You know,
Abyssosaurid. There we go.
I don't know that I have one. I would honestly have to think about that.
Tap. The next part of this question is for you.
Also, can you say? Also, can you tap say? Let's see, Piatnitskisaurus.
Hold on. He's asking. Well, you or me.
Only you. Only you. Yep. Totally only you.
Piatnitskisaurus. Hold on. Sorry. Piatnitskisaurus.
Dapper, did
I mean, I would say Piatnitskisaurus, but you know,
Casaurus. Yes. Piatnitskisaurus. You're right.
Since that question was totally not directed at me, I'm not going to even try.
Well done.
Yeah.
DNA.
Oh no! Get it off the screen.
Deoxyribonucleic acid is very similar in many species. Therefore, we must have evolved.
Okay, hold on. That is not the way you phrase that. DNA as a chemical is the same in every species. It's just DNA. It's like saying CO2 is the same on Earth as it is on Mars. Oh my goodness. What's actually happening is that the nucleotide sequence is what's being compared, not the chemical structure of DNA itself, which is what that phrase means.
There is so CO2 has the exact same chemical structure everywhere, all the time, constantly, forever. DNA is a class of molecule. Any individual molecule would technically have a unique. Well, actually, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be unique because you could have the exact same number of atoms of each type, and they would be in a different sequence. It would be an isomer. Yeah,
that sounds right.
But that's not really how you should think of DNA. You shouldn't.
Thinking of an entire DNA strand as a molecule is a weird way to go about it. It's true.
It really is.
But it's not the most useful way to think about it.
It's kind of like thinking about a single crystal of salt as being a molecule.
Yeah, it's like, why would you do that?
That's not really how you. Yeah.
Living things change and adapt to their environment.
Hey,
Sorry.
Brilliant has spent $5 to say, fact I learned today, a group of tortoise is called a creep. Is that true?
I mean, I thought that's what we called the Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, but...
I certainly do. What did we decide that a group of weasels was? Is it a murder?
That's
confusion.
Confusion, a confusion of weasels.
Confusion.
Yes, you're right. It is murder of crows, confusion of weasels. It is fun.
I like it.
I love it.
Therefore, that proves evolution. Now, while the person that believes in evolution says that evidence is proof of evolution, the creationist looks at the same evidence and says monkeys look and act somewhat like humans because they had the...
How is this sentence finishing?
I don't know. Let's play it.
Monkeys look and act
designer.
like humans.
DNA is very similar in many species because they had the same designer.
So here's the thing about that, right? There are ways to test a common design versus common ancestry hypothesis, right? Oh. So the thing is, the common design hypothesis is going to be a subset of the separate ancestry hypothesis, right? Okay. Which means if you can test the separate ancestry hypothesis, then you have found it to be, wanting, then you have also tested the common designer hypothesis. So a cool way to test this is to look at what's called neutral variation. So there's a whole bunch of various ways in which DNA sequences can vary between organisms. without that actually changing literally anything. Like, it's completely neutral. It changes absolutely nothing. And because of that, you can't say that those changes are due to just design, because, well, they can vary freely. So current sequences are subject to random mutation. Okay, cool. So what you can then do is you can say, all right, so even if we assume that the creator started with all these neutral sequences being completely identical between lineages as a result of common design, right? So like he's just going Control C, Control V on these parts of the genome, which, hey, sure, go for it. What that won't mean is that subsequent mutations between lineages that are separately created will share mutations within those areas, because they can't, because their mutations are separate. Only common ancestry can explain shared mutations between taxa. Okay, so then you just check. Does the neutral variation between various taxa fall into a nested hierarchy that matches the pattern from, say, sequence-constrained regions like coding regions or promoter regions, as well as the morphological data that gives us our sort of morphologically based evolutionary signals? And the answer is yes. And so that directly refutes separate ancestry, which is a requirement for common design, which means that we have, in fact, tested common design. It's not true.
No, like we've actually done this, though.
Yeah, no, there's a great paper that tested separate ancestry versus common ancestry for all primates.
Okay.
What's the name?
I don't remember it off the top of my head, but if you search for that on Google Scholar, you'll probably find it. And man, some of the p-values reported, right, were like, so, like with a p-value, you want it to be low, right?
Right.
How does 1 times 10 to the negative, like 17,000 sound?
That's the thing.
Yeah, that was the confidence for common ancestry among all primates. Yeah, so the chances of it being separate ancestry was roughly estimated at 1 in 10. Or sorry, 1 in 10 to like the 11 or 17,000 somethingth power.
Yeah,
like it is
cool.
absurd.
Is this it?
Statistical evidence for common ancestry, new tests of universal ancestry.
Could it be?
I don't think it is, because I think it was specifically about primates, but that's also probably a good paper about the same thing.
Because this one, if I scroll down until there are numbers, here are numbers. The maximum likelihood. Under the separate ancestry model, the ancestral sequence would be generated at random twice, and the maximal likelihood here would be...
so that is not the paper I'm thinking
small
of, but that also sounds like a good paper testing that exact hypothesis. So
Is
we've
that on
tested...
primates?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
It looks much more...
it's a much wider study.
Well, this part is about primates.
Yeah.
This part, apparently. But, yeah.
But this is a hypothesis we've tested, right? Separate ancestry has been tested. It's been falsified. And look, if you want to complain about that, okay, great. Do a better study that supports separate ancestry. Because one of the things I'm really tired of is creationists pretending that it's my job
Right.
to show whether or not their ideas are like testable or can make predictions. Like, no, man, that's your idea. If you think you have, the actual truth behind some scientific principle and that all the scientists are wrong, great. Go do the experiments. Go do the statistical analysis. Go publish it. If you're not willing to do that, then you're not coming to the table to do science. You're doing something else. I don't know what it is, but it's not science.
But wait, what if I would instead, and hear me out, would like to moan and bitch about what you said?
Because
okay, look,
you're welcome. What about what you just said? Our response is nuh-uh.
I mean, okay, I'm still not going. Like, if all you have is nuh-uh, I'm going to point out that that's all you have, and then not further engage in that.
But I'm going to moan and bitch while I'm saying it.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's parsimonious, okay? Occam's razor, the simplest answer. Your simplest answer is this complex model that looks at all this evidence, and my simplest answer is nuh-uh.
Well, I'll just point out that is not a scientific thing, and so in terms of the realm of science, I don't care. And also, Maya, when it comes to moaning and bitching, I was in the Navy. You don't know how much resistance I have to not caring about other people moaning and bitching. Like
Well done.
I have
Look,
so much resistance to that. It's just like, no, I don't care.
for
Moan and bitch all you
$5,
want.
Left-Handed Jedi said a group of xenomorphs is called an apocalypse.
Nice.
That's fair.
I like it. I like it.
Oh.
Things
good
change
stuff.
and adapt to their environment because their designer allowed them the ability to adapt to their environment. So people can come to very different conclusions even while looking at the same evidence. Well, number 3, I believe biology is actually excellent
All right, here's
evidence
the thing,
for
right?
creation.
With the adaptation thing and the design, right? That is presupposing that your conclusion is true. You're begging the question, right? I'm willing to say that, yeah, it's probably reasonable that if common design and separate ancestry were true, that God might have created organisms with this ability. But you haven't gotten to the point where that's a reasonable hypothesis yet. And so talking about it, I mean, okay, great. If you can get to the point where that's a reasonable hypothesis, but you haven't yet. So I don't care that that's something that might be reasonable if you could prove a different, or well, demonstrate a different hypothesis. You have to get there, and you haven't. You haven't even come close to getting there. So, creationists, your first step, the absolute first step, is to come up with a way to test separate ancestry and to have that test actually come out in favor of separate ancestry, not just when you do it, but when anyone else does it. You need to be able to get everyone to be able to reproduce your results if they actually follow your technique to the letter. That is the first step. Creationists aren't even close to that step. They're not even trying on that step. And that's the thing that really bugs me about this, is that there's all these pretensions to scientific rigor from creationists, right? They have their, oh, well, we have our own journals. Okay, you don't, though. And I can tell because of how bad the peer review is, and also because you don't need your own journals. If you were right about this, you could publish in real journals. You know why you don't? It's not because people are oppressing you. It's because you don't actually have the evidence. You have not figured out a way to actually test your hypotheses that results in a positive result for you that is replicable by other people. That is the first step to being taken seriously in science. Get there or shut up.
I don't know. So, you know how like they started their own science stuff to
Well,
bypass.
science with big quotes.
Yeah, big quotes. Air quotes. We have our own science.
So the problem is, the thing is, okay, creationists like to pretend that peer review is some kind of like conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Or
It's when
conspiracy.
I get a friend to review my thing and the friend just signs a
Yeah.
blank check.
First of all, your friends are not the ones who are going to be peer reviewing your various output, right? Like
That's also not the first step. That's not even the first step. We submitted to a journal recently, and the journal responded that our paper wasn't quite a fit, maybe exactly for what they were looking for. They didn't even send it out for peer review. They were like, submit it to one of our other journals instead. Not because it's bad. They were like, this looks like good stuff. It's just like not the topic that we normally like want to cover. But I maybe shouldn't even be saying this. This is probably a terrible idea for my professional career. But but like we're gonna submit it to another journal. And it, you know, I'm a scientist who has published in peer-reviewed journals multiple times, and they don't just give it to you. It's not a big conspiracy where everybody is on your side. That's not how this works.
It's like the opposite of how it works.
That is exactly. It just...
Imagine actually thinking that the way peer review works is you give it to biased friends who are just going to rubber stamp it.
You'd think like the chance of it getting through peer review would be higher than a third.
Yeah, you'd think if that were how it worked, but it isn't. It's weird. It's like almost nothing actually manages to get through peer review compared to how much stuff is submitted.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, I heard it's like 25 to 30%. Like actually gets through peer review.
I will say that surprises. I didn't realize it was that low. I will say I thought it was higher than half, but I guess that's because of an assumption about the quality of the stuff that's being submitted. there's a lot of stuff that gets submitted that's real bad,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I had a
and
friend in
I
no, I
don't
had a
read
friend
it.
in my group that he actually submitted research papers. Like he worked with John Hopkins, and I can't remember what he did. It was a few years, it's before COVID. But like he was an MD, but it was like a research department, and it's like, yeah, his job was like submitting the research, and I was just like, holy shit, like just all the stuff that got thrown out,
Yeah, it's a
and it
lot.
wasn't bad science. It just
No,
I,
being rejected from publishing in any journal doesn't even that
yeah, and he was submitting to multiple
that
journals, hoping to get picked up by one.
yeah, being rejected from all journals doesn't even necessarily mean it's bad science. It's
Right.
not it's not great. Like that's a little bit weird. Probably beef up some parts of your argument, I would say. Like there's probably something you can do to improve that. But being rejected from one, very, very, very normal. Three,
Mm-hmm.
four,
Oh yeah.
very normal. Because science is it's an antagonistic process
Yep.
with generally people who like agree overall in their worldviews more or less, and so aren't out to like kill each other nowadays so much. Um, but it's fundamentally an antagonistic process in that sense.
I
Like,
miss the good old days when scientific debates were settled by duels.
I really hope those days did not exist.
I mean,
Did
they kind of existed.
Okay. I'm unaware of any scientific argument historically even that was settled by
Well, no, it doesn't
something
actually
analogous to a duel.
it doesn't actually work to settle the argument, but that doesn't mean people didn't try.
The closest example I can think of was back in the 1500s, maybe it was the 1300s. Cardano. There was this mathematician Cardano who like you would challenge other people in like the newspapers or whatever that existed at the time, and you would be like, I can solve these problems and list a bunch of like you have to solve this trinomial equation, and they would like battle each other, but it was all on paper, and it was super lame because they didn't share their like methods, which is like how mathematics and science moves forward. If you figure out how to solve a problem, you tell people how to solve the problem. You don't mock them by being like, I can solve this problem and you can't. Ha 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 ha. That makes you a dick. That's how being a
Are
dick works.
you like reliving something from your youth?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
Here's a play by
Number 3, I believe biology is actually excellent evidence for creation. Listen to what the Word of God says in Romans chapter 1, verse 20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood.
Is that how invisible attributes work?
I mean, it's probably a better way to say like clearly perceived, but like whatever.
It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
I get it. It's flowery. It's colorful language. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick
20.
the use
Yeah.
of steam.
Yeah,
I mean,
I couldn't.
kind of feels like they're getting towards okay, rather than evolution, what is actually happening is God's invisible hand that he so clearly talks about in this verse.
I mean, yeah, that is what they're trying to do.
For since
you're
the
not
creation
wrong.
of the world, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. So in other words, we can understand that there's a creator and a designer.
Isn't that the verse that is also the no one is without excuse, or no one is with excuse or has excuse to disbelieve God? Isn't that Romans 1:20?
Nitty, are you there?
I believe it is. Yeah.
I think that it's the one where it's like
Nitty's my Dalla Bible.
Everybody knows about the stuff. Mark's here. Mark might know. I can't remember. Maybe Mark isn't great with the random. Anyway,
Designer
right.
simply
yeah.
by looking at the creation around us. When you look at living things, it appears that there is a purpose and a design for them. And by the way, that is your keyword, design.
All right, so here's the thing, right? Humans are notoriously prone to seeing like personal intent behind things that are not that, right? So the problem is that just saying like, oh, things seem designed, that doesn't help, because humans are the kind of creatures that will look at things that aren't designed and still think they're designed anyway. An example that might be useful is, you know what a fairy circle is?
Yeah. It's when a tree dies and several other trees like grow up next to it.
Oh yeah, no, I remember
Well,
that.
it's more commonly done with mushrooms than
Oh,
trees.
right, yeah.
But
It happens with trees too, though.
Yeah, no, I learned about it with
So it's-
trees.
yeah, so I'll use the mushroom example because it's
Okay.
pretty easy to understand. So a fungus, like a
Okay.
mushroom, is primarily, during most of its life cycle, a series of very thin filaments that spread out from like a central area where a spore landed, right?
Hmm.
And then it sends up fruiting bodies, but it can only send up fruiting bodies from the areas that are active. But if it's been going for a while, digesting various things, starting from a central point, it's going to be digesting things in roughly a circular pattern, which means the inside of that circle is going to largely be dead, right? Because it's done digesting.
Hmm.
And so when it sends up fruiting bodies, there's a high likelihood that it will send up fruiting bodies in a circular pattern.
Hmm.
Now, normally, when you see weird circular patterns of things growing out of the ground, that doesn't seem like a typical thing that just kind of happens every day. So people impute some kind of personal agency to fairies that might have made this circle of trees or mushrooms or whatever. But that's not what actually happened, right? There weren't actually fairies doing that. And so because something looks designed, that doesn't actually make it designed. It's not even good evidence that it is designed. What you need to look at are are there non-design ways in which this comes about? And have we actually encountered anyone designing it? Because if you have a natural explanation as to how something came about and you haven't actually seen anyone designing something like this, then you actually don't have good reason to think it's designed just because it kind of feels that way intuitively. Intuition is a really bad
Is
way.
that a mushroom or an atom bomb?
A dapper. Well, it's called a mushroom cloud for a reason, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So you're saying that you start with a mushroom, right? And I'll redraw it so that it looks more like a phallus, I guess.
Yeah, if it doesn't look as
There
much
we
like
go.
a dick as possible, then you failed.
There we go. Okay, and it's here with it, like it's various sources of energy, right? Like that sort of thing. There we go. And those are all the little. So we got the mushroom, and it's in some area,
Hmm.
and then it spreads out, and then all of this like dies.
Right, because it's out of food.
It's out of food, and then so you got this, all the dead stuff, and then out here you have all the mushrooms because they're just like spreading out. Is that what's happening?
Yep.
Okay, and so this also looks like the Bohr model of the atom, right? So what you're saying is
Mushrooms designed atoms.
there's a quantum equivalence between mushrooms and atoms, and that is why nuclear explosions look like mushroom clouds.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, you figured it out.
This is okay. So this is the Dapper Vandy Maya unified theory of everything.
We did it, everybody! Congrats.
we solved science with a
Right.
combination of fairy circles and
Science
nuclear
is
weapons.
solved. Good night, everybody.
Right, we figured it out.
Beautiful.
The endeavor of human scholarship is now finished.
I'm not gonna lie though, it's pretty cool to see like a fairy circle of because in trees it's like when the middle tree dies and it opens up a spot for. Sometimes it's just its roots basically sprout up, and redwoods do it, and it's really cool because you get these giant trees that pop up like in a circle.
Yeah. All right, let's hit that play.
Design,
Yeah.
as in God is a designer. When you see the complexity of living things, you have to wonder how that could happen simply by a random chance accident. No,
It
it
could.
seems like it was very.
But that's the thing, it didn't, right? Evolution is not synonymous with chance.
Right.
There are things that occur in evolution that are non-chance events, right?
Right.
Like most famously, I suppose, natural selection is not based on chance. If you characterize natural selection as a chance-based event, you are wrong about how evolution works.
You're missing like the interesting part of like probability theory, which is like not the chancy part or the undetermined part, but like the the pattern and expectation value part.
Also, now we know what Vandy's favorite Pokemon is.
That
Chansey.
I prefer Tokapri.
I mean, okay, but you didn't say the Tokapri part. You said the Chansey part.
Well, you know what?
I do. And what is that your favorite Pokemon is Chansey, which is a fine Pokemon.
Why? Dapper's being mean to me.
What's wrong with Chansey?
But I mean, is he wrong?
Yeah,
No,
see? Exactly.
I don't go screaming to my
You know, there's a
YouTube.
play button down there. It looks like a
Okay.
triangle.
Very intentional that they were made in such a complex way. When you see so many living things that share similar construction, like bones, or blood, or internal organs, or the fact that there are many things that have legs or arms.
No, those are just things that you absolutely need if you're going to be a macroscopic multicellular organism.
What?
What? I hate it.
I'm just like, what?
You're welcome.
Oh my God.
Dapper's sitting here being like, thanks, I hate it.
Yeah, basically.
So I have a question though.
Okay.
Did that list get better or worse, or did it go like up and down, or was it totally random?
So the thing is, it's basically just a list of things that a lot of organisms have, because how could they not? Right?
Yeah, blood.
Like, once you're big enough. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm not a biologist, but I would think that you're gonna need to have a way of transporting stuff around the body internally, and that's like, there are two options for that. Option one is a liquid, and option two is a gas, and both of those are fluids. So you're gonna have stuff like flowing around, and probably a gas is gonna be tough for most of it.
So basically, any organism above a certain size is going to have a liquid that is used for oxygen transport and nutrient transport, right?
And we call that liquid blood. That's what blood is.
Well, we usually call that liquid blood. There are exceptions. For instance, the fluid that insects and other arthropods use is hemolymph, which has more functions than just blood does. It combines the functions of blood and lymphatic fluid, which you might understand from the name hemolymph.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but like overall, yeah, if you're above a certain size, you're going to need some kind of substance that will be, transporting oxygen for you. So, like, that's not. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, similarly with bones and skeletons, you need to have some sort of solid, robust, support and like load bearing substrate of some sort to build off of. And square cube law, it's going to have to be internal at a certain point, not external.
Right. And so this is just one of those things where it's like, do you want to be an organism that survives? Well, you're going to have to do certain things then. And one of those is have a fluid that transports oxygen and nutrients and maybe does other things. One of those is going to be have a structure for your muscles to anchor to and that can support your weight, right? Like, that's just, if evolution is true, it would predict that these things would still occur. And if common design is true, it would also predict that these things would occur, which means that it's not a useful way to determine which one of those is accurate, right? In order to actually argue for your position, you need to find ways that your argument makes sense, but that the counter argument doesn't. So, for instance, like if I were to use, say, like something else, right? Like, I think that the proper way to make a cake is actually to pray to the cake fairies. And the cake fairies require that I put the batter that they produce for me in an oven at 350 degrees. And you point out, okay, but my non-cake fairy recipe also has me putting the ingredients into a batter into a 350 degree oven. So we can't use the 350 degree oven to differentiate between cake fairies and my naturalistic cake recipe.
But if I come out and give you a naturalistic cake recipe or some other cake recipe, it wouldn't be very good, where I'm like, instead of putting it in an oven, you shake it really, 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 really hard, and that's how you give the energy and like knock it and pack it all into place so that it comes out as a nice cake. like we could test that,
Right.
and it wouldn't work very well.
Which one actually produces a cake?
Yeah.
Unless you're shaking extremely vigorously, it's probably going to be the oven.
And in both cases, like if a man, that would be so cool. How hard would you have to shake in order for it to come out cooked? I don't know if it's possible, but it's like a weird physics chemistry question.
Well, I think I've figured out what you have to do over the course of the next week or so.
Oh God, I have lasers. I don't have cake shakers.
Well, you're going to have to figure out how to turn a laser into a cake shaker. Good luck.
I'm gonna press play.
Or blood, or internal organs, or the fact that there are many things that have legs, or arms, or wings. It implies a common designer, a designer that really liked the way that...
It doesn't. It's just neutral. It's just neutral. But just to hit play, it's not. There's nothing else to go over.
Things worked and used that very, very regularly in the construction of his living things. When you look at the fact that there are so many things that are a finished product, for instance, how in the world would an eye have ever developed on a creature?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Even I can tell them that that's like from page 2 of chapter 6 of Origin of Species. I've never read Origin of Species.
You should. It's pretty good.
Oh my God! Wait, no, Dapper, you love talking about this.
Yeah. So look, here's the thing: we have known how an eye can evolve for like well over a century. Eyes develop first. The first like ingredient in an eye is opsin proteins. Opsin proteins are a class of proteins that have many functions in various cells, but one of the things that's true about opsin proteins is that they change shape when they're exposed to certain wavelengths of light, which means they're photosensitive, which means they are the basis for having some kind of photosensitivity in terms of like animals actually being able to adjust their behaviors to light levels.
And then you're off to the races.
Right. Then you can have a photosensitive, like just nature, right? Like you can just kind of tell if it's light or dark, which can help you regulate things like circadian rhythms. So like, when do you go to sleep versus when do you stay awake, stuff like that.
It's almost immeasurably useful, like just to have that ability.
Exactly.
Are you like typing a dissertation? Like, why? What's going on back there? Like, I'm hearing your no. I'm not sure if it's you or which one of you. Okay, you're not typing.
Probably me.
Okay.
I have a very loud keyboard.
You do.
Sorry. So, I just lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
We were talking about how just having photosensitive things will give you a lot of use just right there. Right. Then how does it develop?
So at this point, right, like you have the ability to sense your overall light levels.
Yeah.
But if you concentrate the level of opsin, like clustering, basically, in certain parts of your body, you can now tell roughly which direction the light is coming from, right?
Okay.
So that means that you can tell, say, what time of day it is, or if some predator swims over you, now you can, say, swim away or burrow or something, right? You can do some kind of response to the fact that predator is there, which is also helpful. Now, if those patches of photosensitivity form into like depressions, well, now you can get an approximate idea of which direction the light is coming from, which means that you have a better ability to do things like respond to predators, right? So if a predator is coming from your left, well, now you can run to the right instead of just panicking and doing whatever. Next, if this depression starts to narrow at the top so that it's more of a pinhole, you can actually resolve a dim but resolvable actual image of whatever's going on, which is even more useful. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem with pinhole eyes, which is actually the kind of eye that Nautilus have, Nautilus is the cephalopods.
Why am I blurred? Right? Sorry. Keep talking.
Oh, the camera hates you.
Yeah. If you have that kind of eye, it's dim, but it can produce an image. But the problem is that it is, in fact, dim. The reason for that is because you can only get a small amount of light through a pinhole. But if any kind of transparent whatever is something you can secrete into that little pinhole, it will collect light from a wider area, which means you can make a brighter version of that, which you now have a camera eye. All you need to do now is put some muscles around it and you can adjust how much light you can bring in. And if the transparent stuff is flexible, you can also use muscles to change its shape so that you can focus at different distances. That's it. That's how you get an eye. It's not actually that complicated. It's actually kind of basic.
I can do it
Well, I
badly
mean,
on the whiteboard.
yeah, I mean, and so basic that like most animals have them.
They eyes have evolved at least like 30 different times. They have evolved.
Uh-huh.
That's what I've heard. Flight has evolved 4 that I'm aware of,
Yes.
and which
Flight is
is
harder than
interesting.
eyes.
Yep. By a lot.
It is, but that's like not necessarily obvious, I think. But maybe I'm
It's
wrong.
evolution, which is obviously like an entity that hates God.
Mm-hmm.
Hail Satan.
Do before it could completely see and its eye was completely developed. It doesn't make any sense. The study of DNA, which is basically the instructions that tell each living thing what to become, has essentially proven that evolution is not possible.
I would love a citation for that.
I want to. We gotta clip this and send it to Dr. Dan.
Oh man, I hope he comes
Because
back and sees this. Because wow,
that's why I'm saying we should clip it and send it to him, because
I could do that.
He'll hate you.
The amount of
Right?
Probably.
I mean, yeah, but will it be more or less than how much he hated me for talking about how the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell?
More, I would say.
You weren't there. You weren't there, Dapper.
I really thought he was gonna rage quit. That was great.
It was pretty funny.
of change that would be needed in DNA from generation to generation to turn one kind of animal into a completely different kind of animal simply
doesn't mean anything,
isn't
guy.
possible.
That literally doesn't mean anything. There's no such thing as a kind until you demonstrate that there is one. So you might as well say, I don't know how to turn one Glarkenmook into another Glarkenmook. It doesn't mean anything. They're just sounds that you're making. There's literally nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I don't know if you caught AJ's stream earlier today. Somebody had asked Kent to define a kind, and it was just, oh my God, so much like, you know how he does, just to kind of like, and I had to be reminded by Big Bad Mama. It's like, this is Kent answering, what is a kind? It's like, oh my God. And it was pretty much like his answer was because evolutionists can't determine what a species is, then therefore we don't have to describe what a kind is.
Well,
yeah, there's a big problem with that argument, right?
Because
it is true. It is true that it is hard to define a species, and that species designations are somewhat arbitrary. But that's the thing; they're arbitrary.
But in like
kinds are
ways,
not arbitrary. Well, let me finish.
I mean, they're determined by God. You would think they'd be,
So what is not arbitrary in evolutionary biology is a clade, right?
Okay.
Clades are real things. Now we might misidentify them, but there's a real thing there. And it's actually true that they're real things in creationism too, right? Because creationists accept some amount of common ancestry. So clades are real. Species are just what we kind of call certain clades for ease of use, which means we don't actually have to come up with a consistent, always applicable definition for species, because species are just there for human convenience. They're not a real part of nature. But if kinds, as creationists understand them, which is to say like a group of separately created organisms that share common ancestry with each other, but not with anything else, if that's real, then we need to actually be able to figure out how to detect them, because we can detect clades, right? We have statistical techniques to figure out whether or not it's more likely that these two organisms are in a clade or not. And that is not arbitrary. Now, again, we might not always get it right every time, but it's still not arbitrary, which is the important point here. Whereas kinds are always arbitrary. So this is a false equivalency here that Kent likes to go into when he's like, well, you don't have a great definition for what species is. Okay, I'm not the one who's claiming that species are an intrinsic part of nature that have always existed since nature began. You're making that claim for kinds, though. So help me out. Fill me in. How does this work?
I mean, and if asked, scientists can actually give a definition for or a rationale for how they get to species, especially
Oh,
when
yeah.
you get to certain animals. But yeah, I mean, he just can't even give a broad one. It's just all
Nope.
deflection. It is so funny to me. And speaking of, oh my god, I had this clip from earlier. It was so funny. I wanted to show you. Let me know if you can hear this.
It's Magic Man.
Ooh, Kansas and
Magic
potato
Man,
fish.
Magic Man, dodge every single tax I can.
The taxes.
I thought it was funny. I wanted to
Turns
share
out
with the
he can
world.
dodge fewer taxes than he thinks.
Exactly.
Wow.
All right.
Sorry, Kent. Not actually. No, I'm not. You deserve it.
Yeah.
Kent
Oh,
deserves every bad thing that has ever happened to him, or could ever happen to him. He's an absolute piece of shit.
Yep.
all right.
How about the
moving
fact that there are so many types of life that depend on one another? We call that symbiosis. For example, a termite actually
We do call that symbiosis. That is a thing that the kids learned. Yay.
has living organisms inside of its digestive system that help it digest
This is termites. I think I cut it off before.
Yeah, it is.
the wood that it eats. Which came first? Because neither could survive without the other. Well, of course, the
Anymore.
creationist.
Okay. So, hold on.
Anymore.
Termites are a kind of cockroach.
Oh, did not know that.
Yep. Turns out they are a kind of cockroach. They're a very weird kind of cockroach, but they're
Yeah.
still a kind of cockroach.
It's a pretty successful clade.
Yeah, but they're-
Cockroaches, I mean. Also
Oh, yeah,
termites.
yeah. I mean, they're very successful, but not all cockroaches have this obligatory, super important relationship with a small subset of their gut bacteria, right? Like that's not how all cockroaches work. And so, what's important is that they can't live without each other anymore, right? An analogy that I like to use is a stone arch, right? A stone arch is a very popular architectural technique. And the interesting thing about stone arches is they're very strong and they're very hard to knock down. But if you can remove any one stone from a stone arch, the entire thing collapses. So the only possible conclusion is that stone arches are in fact created by a stone arch god because they can't come about step by step, right? Humans couldn't do that, except that we know they can. How do they do that? Well, they start out with structures that are not so dependent on the entire structure being there at first. It's called a scaffold, right? So you start out in a situation where you are building a structure that eventually will be very, very much dependent on every piece being there at once, like symbiosis or other so-called irreducibly complex systems. But you don't start out by building an irreducibly complex system or a symbiotic system that's obligatory. You start out by making one that has redundancies and that is not something that has to be like all there or all not there. And
Also,
that's it. That's the whole explanation.
Also, you might a creationist response to what Dapper just said might be that yes, but they still had an intelligent designer. All of these stone arches were built and were intentionally created. And wait, oh.
But notice how different
no.
that looks from the ones that are intentionally created. And
like
perhaps
most
why
ones-
we think that was not intentionally created.
And they don't
the one-
exist for the same reasons. They don't exist for remotely the same reasons. These exist because of erosional, interesting like things. They are potentially more resistant to like loads from the top than other formations for exactly the same reasons that we would build them. But like, are these from humans? Did somebody intentionally create these? Does every cloud need a clouder? Is a thing that I once heard Paulogia say that I loved.
Yeah. Yep.
Understands that they were made that way at the same time. And there are numerous other examples just like these that show
So before termites got the gut bacteria, were they able to get anything nutritional of value or whatever out of cellulose at all?
I don't know.
Because they
Yeah.
could still exist mostly in the niche, like not the hyper they can eat cellulose niche that they now exist in, but
So it's possible. So I don't know that much about the evolutionary history of termites in particular, but a hypothetical, because, well, one thing I want to say is, if the argument is this is impossible, I don't need to show how it happened to say it's not impossible. I just need to be able to
yes.
come up with one plausible explanation to say it's not impossible. So here's
Yeah.
a plausible option. There may have been a herbivorous group of termites that were eating a lot more plant material, and then some of their gut bacteria evolved a cellulase enzyme, and that unlocked more efficient herbivory from that group, and then that allowed them to take on niches that other similarly sized insects were unable to occupy in terms of herbivory, and then they were later able to more easily specialize into eating wood. And so initially they probably were only eating a little bit of wood after the initial cellulase evolution, and then maybe there was something where, like, some of their gut bacteria evolved the ability to digest lignin, which is another structural component of wood. And then you combine those two, and now you can specialize into eating wood as your specialization, as your niche, is you are a wood eater. And that is
That's like all sorts of like reasonable like hypothesis building and critical thinking. And that like but what about again, nuh-uh.
Well, again, because the argument is that it is impossible to evolve a symbiotic relationship between some groups of cockroaches and a group of bacteria that allow them to digest wood, all I have to do is be plausible. That's it. And I've defeated the argument that it's impossible. Now that I have
Yeah.
a possible path, that's it. Argument done.
Yeah, but God says it's not possible.
Well, I would contest that God does not say that, and if he does, he's wrong.
That's true.
See,
And
this
we're
is
not a
why
religious
we've only gotten
people.
6 minutes through.
So
I was not at all like, you guys were talking about like before the show about
The
how
play
like, we
button?
might
Were
get
we
through all
talking
this
about the
stuff,
play button
and
though?
not in a realistic
biology
way.
is actually excellent evidence for creation. Well, number 4, and the last thing, to believe biology proves evolution actually requires more faith than believing God created the heavens and the earth. Well,
It requires literally no faith at all.
I am an atomic physicist. I have a PhD in atomic physics. They don't give them PhDs in atomic physics. It doesn't matter. I have a PhD in physics. Evolution is a more solidly established scientific theory than atomic theory. This is a thing that I explicitly say and want to provide to anybody who might have chance to like drop it in a video, because you have an atomic physicist friend. I understand there are limitations to that train of thought, trust me. But it is more atomic theory is a less secure foundational theory in a lot of ways, in my opinion, than evolutionary theory. Mostly for metaphysical reasons, but those are problems that evolution does not have. It fundamentally does not have those metaphysical problems because quantum weirdness doesn't exist in evolution.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and again, I just want to remind people that science isn't a religion. Science is a fact-finding process. When we're saying, when we're talking about science, we're talking about the papers that people have written, that other people have read, and the data contained there within, where you could take the paper and retrace their steps and do said things yourself and get to, I mean, it's just like a recipe. We were talking about baking a cake. You can follow these steps and get to a cake. You can follow these steps and get, if you have the all of the tools that the scientists had, you can get the same results. And if you don't, that is a problem. And a lot
just
of
like
things.
it is when you're baking a cake. If you don't
Yeah.
have an oven, if you don't have a cake, a dish, pan, I don't know what they're called. Look at me.
Yeah, we get it. We get it. All of the said things. Right. If you don't have it, then you're gonna have to, I guess, trust somebody find somebody you trust, or ask your local, you can ask the local scientist at your biologist, or whomever at your local college. Maybe enroll in a course if it's really just that hard for you to grasp. But there are a lot of ways that you can figure out, like, what does this mean? And we're not just hoping and thinking and coming up with opinions and ideas about how things might have worked. We're actually looking at the data that somebody took the steps and said, this is how I got here. So I don't know what his definition of faith is, but it doesn't take, what is it, evidence of things unseen, or
Well,
substance of things
ironically,
hoped for.
by
Yeah, it doesn't take,
comparing
hope for things, or unseen things. There's,
ironically, by comparing evolution, which he thinks is poorly evidenced, to
mhm.
something that needs faith, it seems like his definition of faith is believing things for bad reasons.
You played yourself.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that there's a very big difference in the science where you can look at something like a recipe, follow the steps, and get output, than it is the Bible, which just says that God spoke and things happen, because that actually is something we've never seen happen.
Yeah.
Can't observe, no one's witnessed, and we can't reproduce. So I don't know. I would love to, again, not diss in religion. I want to understand what his definition of faith is right here, because it doesn't make sense given what we get from the two things that he's proposing.
I would also say that it and it's very difficult to sort of figure out what to do about this, but it's not like you can just like a layperson can just read a paper, a new paper in the field of whatever, and then go out and immediately be able to recreate that.
Also,
Like,
not what I'm saying.
yeah, exactly, totally not what you're saying. But sometimes people seem to think that is what scientists are saying.
Since we're having a quick break from the video, I'm going to grab myself a new beverage because I'm out.
Fair.
Oh, awesome. While you're doing that, I'm going to wait. Did you have a point you wanted to finish?
I just wanted to say that it's not you being able to understand and recreate and do an experiment yourself is like not the bar that you should have.
Right.
Less you have put in the time and the effort to understand all of what that actually means. Because doing well-formed experiments can be very difficult on certain topics.
Mhm.
If you're trying to figure out if your floor is tilted, if you put a billiard ball on it and it rolls, that's good enough. Like your floor is tilted. But if you're trying to figure out if like dark matter exists, then
Okay.
that's gonna, like take a little bit of time.
Yeah. No. And yeah. And again, not what I'm saying. I am.
Totally. Yeah, I wasn't saying that you were saying that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I apologize if that's how it came across. But one, yeah, I'm saying that this is how science is written, like a recipe. I'm not saying that
Yes.
you person
Experiments
doubting my
experiment
opinion in particular can actually do it.
experimental science is very much written like that. What like when you if you're writing down an experiment with the intention that other people will be able to recreate it, which is a lot of publications are intended to be like that. Not all, but a lot. You need to put in the way you will express it in a concise form will look very much like a recipe. Like, this is the stuff that you have to have. You need to have an egg beater and an oven. If you don't have an egg beater, you better have a whisk. And like all of that, and then you need to have these ingredients and you need to do it in this order,
Concise.
and then you should expect this stuff.
They know how recipes work. Concise.
I'm sorry.
Just saying, because we're at like almost 2.5 hours. But yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that. Yeah, that's not what I'm trying to say. But two, this is how science is done, to where it can be replicated, as opposed to the Bible that just says that God did it. And
I'm
we
back.
don't know how God did it. We're just saying that, there's no steps to retrace. There's no steps or processes. There's just very different things. And the Bible, again, when oh my God, I used to know this verse. When you look at what the Bible says it is useful for, it's pretty much just spiritual edification.
and,
Um,
and teaching.
expressly, like not in there is like medical science, science, medical advice, or history. Actually, history. The Bible says that it's not good for. It doesn't say that, but it does omit history when saying what it is good for. So maybe we just take some stuff with a grain of salt, not use it
Indeed.
like science or a medical book or for accurate history, which history was done a little differently back then than it's being done now. And you should probably know that too before you make assertions. For $2, Fern Love Bond says, love to the mods. That's it. Just 2 mods. So yeah, I mean, I usually when we don't have BBH or Tangela here, I do have 4 mods, and that's generally more than enough. And probably at 1,000, thinking about more. If you're interested in being a mod, let me know. You have to have a Discord account, and you have to be willing to put up with BBH. And who's your pet troll? P Town.
BBH is. Oh well, BBH is. I haven't seen P Town in a hot second. BBH is now my petrol. I collect them.
Yes. And again, we do have a no tolerance on like science misinformation, slurs of any kind, medical misinformation. Like there's no, I mean, there's a
Preaching.
number of,
All right,
preaching.
I have to say you've already said at least a few slurs because you said Hoven several times.
Fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I'm not sure I believe in this whole no tolerance on slurs. Come on.
I mean,
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I am looking for at least one more, and particularly a late night one. So if you're generally up this time of night, I'm looking for an extra person because generally, most of my mods are asleep by now. So, those are the,
so
if you're interested, let me know. And I think we're done with this one, right?
I think we are done with this one.
Okay, and it's been 2
and
hours,
what's the
2.5
time? Yeah.
hours.
So I
So
think we're done.
Wait, right after I go and get a drink, you guys are like,
no,
now
we can
we're
totally
done?
go
We-
into one more. Like,
If you
Okay.
want to, we can.
are you
let's
up for
do
one
it.
more? We just did
Let's
one
do
over.
it.
It's
Yeah,
up to
All
you.
come
right.
on.
Oh, I
Okay.
am
hold
so
on. I
for
gotta.
that.
I didn't even share the thing because I stopped
Let's-
sharing the thing.
Nah, bring it back. Bring it back.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
Yay.
Where the hell is it on this thing?
Look, early this morning, I listened to all of them in a row on ×2 just to get a flavor of what's going on, and I don't remember them, but I remember them being super dumb.
Yeah. Because actually, that's what I did too when I first went through it. Because I heard the first one, I'm like, "Whoa, this is gold," but it's a little short. Or there are more.
There's a whole
Oh,
playlist.
Yeah, a whole
Oh.
playlist of stupid. It was like a gift from the baby Jesus.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, baby Jesus. Sorry for making you cry so much.
So this one is basic meaning of creation, basic meaning of evolution. That I mean,
That
that's
sounds
totally
great.
new territory that they haven't already talked about, I guess.
Well,
but
what's the next
Evolution.
one though? Is this 4?
they don't say anything other than evolution of then which part they are. So if you guys know, I can hop to. You know what? The later ones are probably funnier because they probably ran out of material. So
You know what? Let's try number 9. Let's see what he finally comes up with.
is that?
Yeah, that one.
Remember, the word dinosaur simply means
This is about dragons.
Oh no. Okay.
Oh, this is
Okay.
great.
Excellent.
I'm so glad we decided to do this.
terrible lizard. Number 1, dragons existed at least up until the Middle Ages, and of course, since the word dinosaur had not been invented until 1841, what people used to call dragons in literature and even in the Bible may simply have been what we consider to be dinosaurs.
Please
Okay.
speak to this.
Okay, so first,
So many things wrong here.
once again, we're coming to the etymology fallacy, right? The fact that dinosaur can be literally translated in Greek as terrible or fearful or like magnificent and scary lizard doesn't make them lizards. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they were particularly scary or powerful or anything, because there were plenty of tiny little dinosaurs that were not magnificent or scary.
That's how names work. It's how names work. Like,
Yeah, there were plenty of dinosaurs that were just cute little guys doing cute little guy stuff. Right? So, also, no, there are no historical records that can reasonably be inferred to be about non-avian dinosaurs from any period of history. There are depictions of reptilian scary things, but being reptilian and scary doesn't make you a dinosaur. There are also hoaxes, but hoaxes are hoaxes, not evidence. The only thing they're evidence of is that there's a hoaxer.
Wait, even the Shroud of Turin?
Yes, even the Shroud of Turin. Yep, also a hoax. Or at least that's what all the evidence seems to indicate. So,
Including the creators.
Yeah.
If you want several hours of deep dive into that, you should go over to Jordan from Reasons to Doubt. Am I right? Is that right?
Yeah, no, you really should. When it comes to dragons in the Bible, the word typically translated as dragon in the Old Testament is tanin, which is a word that basically means a water serpent, right? These are not creatures that were real. They're mythical. And they are related to Leviathan in the Bible, who is described with the word tanin in places, like the Psalms. And in Greek, the word that is usually translated as dragon in older translations literally just means snake or serpent, right? It's just a fancy way to say snake. So in Revelation, when the dragon is talked about, that old twisting serpent, that's using language that is directly taken from the Septuagint, which is the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, where in the underlying Hebrew, the word is tanin. So they're talking about the same thing. They're talking about these mythical water snakes that are manifestations of the chaos of the great deep that God formed the earth out of. We know what these things are, right? This isn't a mystery. We also have things like the Ugaritic literature, which the Hebrew often quotes almost word for word, because here's a cool thing about Ugaritic. It's basically just a different dialect of the same language as Hebrew. It used a different writing system, but in terms of vocabulary and grammar, they're almost identical. They're basically the same language, right? It's sort of like the difference between like Hindi and Urdu. A Hindi speaker and an Urdu speaker can understand each other just fine. Sure, they use different alphabets to write their language, and there are some differences in vocabulary and a few minor grammatical differences, but so what? The fact that we call them different languages is just an accident of like archaeology and politics.
That makes if they had to do it over like letters, it would be hard though, right? Or is it even then fairly straightforward because there's such a one-to-one correspondence that they're still able to do it?
Ugaritic uses a syllabic version of cuneiform, so it's very easy to figure out the exact correspondence between the two languages. But I mean, Ugaritic does have a lot more quote-unquote letters, so it's not as simple as just converting one alphabet to another. But it's not that much more complicated either. And so we know that in many cases, literature about Leviathan, Behemoth, and even God are just lifted straight out of the older Ugaritic literature. And so, like, none of this is mysterious. None of this is something we have to ask questions about. And none of it has anything to do with dinosaurs. None of it. So, yeah, feel free to hit play, I guess.
Oh, also wanted to thank Kilo Charlie for being a member. Thank you.
That is really great, actually. It's always amazing when people are like, yeah, no, I'll put some of my hard-earned money into your coffers.
No, I really appreciate it. And, I was saying to everybody earlier, like, if I could make my emotes free, like, it wouldn't. I don't know. Really, well, please enjoy your time. and your nitties. I just, love sharing my tits and vagina emotes with the world.
Okay.
You need to say it more smoothly, Maya. Otherwise, people are going to get the wrong idea.
Exactly.
There are
Like a
many
joke. Also, Dr. Tapioca Weasel has been a member for 8 months, and he gets no applause because it's literally the least he could do.
Also, I've been a member way longer on other channels on YouTube. I think I'm a member for 31 months over on Dapper's channel, just saying.
stories in history and literature, things like Gilgamesh and other tales of dinosaur-like creatures that were hunted and killed. Alexander the Great and his lieutenants in his army all had reports of having seen or heard about dragons in their...
Okay, hey, remember when I mentioned that the word that is usually translated as dragon from Greek means like snake or serpent?
Yeah.
Did you know that there are giant snakes in India to this day? They're
No.
called pythons.
But I mean,
That's
hold on.
impossible.
Dapper. That would require me to believe that snakes, which are just like a long string of bones, are gonna be somehow a successful taxon, and not just like a tiny little offshoot that's a rounding error in whatever.
Well, even if they were just a rounding error in the like grander scheme of reptile taxonomy, they would still exist, and you could still come across them, and you would still use a word like dracon to refer to them, and it still wouldn't have anything to do with dinosaurs.
Yeah, but I was setting you up for the other thing, so go on.
Oh.
Was it a nuh-uh?
No, it was that snakes are the most like successful like sub, I think.
Well, they are extremely successful lizards, right? They live in places that no other lizards live in. Like,
They live everywhere that like if a lizard lives there, a snake lives there.
yes, and if no other lizards live there, snakes are likely to still live there anyway.
Yeah, they're
Except Ireland. Thanks, St. Patrick, who definitely didn't actually drive out the snakes, but whatever, it's okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
Do you think-
We have a lot of shit going on here. All right, real quick. Robin Webster has been a member for renewing her membership. Is a member for 8 months. Thank you. B.S. Lewis is coming back, renewing his membership for 6 months. Thank you. And then who do we have? Al Trucker. Where'd Al go? Al Trucker is a member for 7 months. Oh my God, guys, you are the awesomest. Dapper, thank you for going long, because if you hadn't done this, we wouldn't have gotten like fucking 5 more members. Like, holy shit.
You're welcome. I'm here to help, and also to dunk on stupid creationist nonsense.
And isn't it all? It never gets old.
No, it does. You just don't get to see those parts.
That's
You
what
don't get
that's
to
what
see
the year of backup,
Yeah.
what you call it, is for.
Exactly. You don't get to see the times that I'm writing a script and I step outside to scream.
I want to see those. Can you put them as like Patreon exclusive?
No.
Seriously,
Oh, that would get so much.
No.
like a couple. Like you can edit them, but we would pay money.
I bet
we
you
would pay
would.
more money.
Well, okay, yeah, but other people would also pay money, not just me. Okay, like
The problem is that it's a very like spur of the moment thing that's hard to like plan, right? So, yeah.
You have a
Yeah,
phone.
you just like, throw your phone at your roommate. It's like, follow me.
He'd be down for it because I'd buy him a pizza.
But no, seriously, like the times when it gets to be overwhelming are not the times that I put out publicly, and it does get overwhelming, and it does get tiring.
Oh, we do know.
And like, still though, I mean, I consider it to be a great job because I think I'm good at it, and
You're very good at it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you are. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're not giving the chat enough attention. Left-handed Jedi have gifted 5 people.
Oh wow, thank you.
With 5 more cult members from Left-handed Jedi. Thank you. Where's my lost my applause button? Those went out to Chris McDaniel, Jaunty Scarecrow, Elias Fake Name, Brojo's 420
Great name.
Cafe, and James Nordhoff. Everybody, including Robin, BS, Al, and Fern, please enjoy your tapioca weasels, your vaginas, and your nitties. Mwah, 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 mwah. I'm sorry.
Conquests all over the world. And there are many references to dragons in Chinese literature. So I think that that's just simply a word that is the same type of creature as what we consider to be dinosaurs.
Okay,
Maybe not necessarily.
Here's the thing. There are basically no real connections between, say, like Chinese dragons and Western dragons and whatnot. These are just different conceptualizations of vaguely reptilian organisms that aren't real, that Westerners have just given the label dragon because basically if it's mythical and scaly, we like to call it a dragon. But there's really no connection.
And
between...
we can recognize it.
Right.
Like even your typical American who has seen the movie Mulan can recognize the difference between a Western dragon like Smaug and a Chinese dragon like what's more on screen here. They
Are
don't
we
have
actually talking about like things that we call like a Komodo dragon or whatever, or is he talking about like mythical creatures that never existed?
Well, right now, I mean, he's got on screen a mythical creature that never existed.
Okay,
but
just want to make sure.
Like a mythical creature that never existed that you can still differentiate as being a Chinese mythical creature that never existed versus an Anglo-Saxon mythical creature that never existed.
Right. So yeah, there's just no there. You can't go from English speakers use the same word to refer to different mythical creatures from different cultures to therefore late surviving non-avian dinosaurs. Like that's not there's no line between those two things.
And they probably Bree mentioned just now in the chat that they both stem from folklore stories to explain fossil remains. I don't know if that's like super established, but it seems likely.
It is a very reasonable possibility. It is not something that I would say is for sure.
You'd have to have somebody like write down, I wrote this thing, and then I told my poet in my like village, and he came up with an epic story in order to actually have that be for sure. And that's not how records tend to work.
It's certainly possible.
Yeah. Very reasonable. Yeah.
That is the same type of creature as what we consider to be dinosaurs, maybe not necessarily quite as big, but of the same type of animal. Number 2, could there be...
How many dinosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs, had wings?
I guess it depends on exactly how you define dinosaur, and bird, but not none.
Okay, that's actually good. I wasn't aware of that. I would have thought that the answer was none, but there's a reason I asked it.
So like Microraptor is
that's fair.
Definitely not a bird by anyone's estimate, except I guess for creationists. But no real scientists think that, at least that I know of. Well, okay, I guess besides Alan Fiducia and his buddies. So the consensus, the very strong consensus, is that Microraptor is definitely not a bird.
The non-bandit consensus.
The Scansoriopterigids had wings that were membranous and stretched between wing fingers and a bony strut that it's not clear what that is. It might have been a wrist bone. It might have been a sesamoid bone. It's not clear. But they had wings and they weren't birds. And also, if you want to define bird as very strictly as like crown birds, then a whole host of stem birds like Confuciusornis, Ichthyornis, a lot of animals like that had wings and could fly, but weren't technically birds in the strictest sense. But if you want to count those as birds, then I guess you don't get to count those. But you would still get to count Scansoriopterigids as well as Microraptorine dromaeosaurs. So yeah, it's not none.
Fair enough.
Dinosaurs living on Earth today. Well, a couple things you have to consider.
Yeah, it's not impossible, but we don't have any evidence to indicate it, right?
Hold on.
Look, I birthed a dinosaur last weekend.
Avian. They didn't
Well,
say
okay, I'm going to go. For this, I'm just going to assume that every time he says dinosaurs, what he really means is non-avian dinosaurs. Because if I stop and point out every single time he says dinosaur, that, yeah, birds. That's all I'll be doing for the rest of the night.
That would be funny. Though. Like,
I mean, it would be, but I want to
after
do other
every
things.
sentence, my guy, birds.
Yeah, so birds, yes. Obviously, there are birds. But
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm fucking
Well,
with you.
we'll let him cook.
Yeah.
Consider the world has not been totally explored. So really, from a scientific aspect, it's impossible to say that there are absolutely no dinosaurs living on Earth today.
Which is the point that you were technically agreeing with.
Yeah,
Not even technically.
Can you actually 100% guarantee that no non-avian dinosaurs live today? No. But like it's sort of like Bigfoot. Show me the evidence, or I don't buy it. Right.
Yep.
Also, I have to point out that one of the animals he's showing is a plesiosaur, and they are absolutely not dinosaurs.
Well, I mean, that's like saying that a pterodactyl isn't a dinosaur.
No, it's worse, right? Because pterodactyls are much closer to dinosaurs than plesiosaurs are. Plesiosaurs are actually very closely related to turtles.
Oh, cool.
And they are not at all very closely related to dinosaurs.
So you're saying he's not even trying?
No, not even a little bit.
Are they all tetrapods? At least?
They're all reptiles, for that matter.
Hey, I mean, I could be a reptile.
Yeah, but you're not.
You could not.
Yeah.
There are actually tribes that live near the Likawala swamp in the Congo that have reported seeing animals that we would...
Oh, boy.
Okay, you know what all these reports have in common? None of them were reported before extensive contact with Westerners.
Gullible Westerners.
Gullible Westerners. And
is
also...
the operative term, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, also, the reports of this seem like they're very possibly just ways to scam Western quote-unquote researchers into giving things to the people in the swamp, like, you know, T-shirts, shorts, cans of Coke, candy bars. Basically, what's happening is that the locals are scamming Western adventurers into believing that there's a dinosaur because they know that the Western adventurers will give them crap. So they're just taking advantage of, like, Western tourism into the Congo, which, you know what? Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them. Keep it up, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
If anyone is gullible enough to think that there's a freaking tiny sauropod in the Congo, then you know what, guys? You scam the heck out of them. Go for it. I approve.
And crazier things have happened. Like, we have had species that were thought to be mythic that turned out to be real. Not at this level. Like,
Well,
not at this level of, like, we are really sure there's no Makili Membe.
So one thing is, remember, gorillas and okapis were both cryptids at one point, right?
Exactly.
But here's the thing. When people went looking for gorillas and okapis,
They
they
found
found gorillas and okapis.
Yep.
When people go looking for Mokele and Mbembe, they find malaria, and that's about it.
And who doesn't like malaria?
Yeah,
Everyone.
it's
Everyone. Almost nobody likes malaria. And the people that do are literal supervillains.
Yeah. That's accurate.
describe as being small dinosaurs. The famous Loch Ness in Scotland. There's always been tales and stories running around of a great sea-like creature.
Okay, hold on, pause it. First of all, on the bottom right, that's not even supposed to be Nessie, right? That is a purported quote-unquote body of a sea monster from South America that is nakedly fake in that the stuff that he's got blurred out there, that's literally chicken guts coming out of what is basically an incision that's been placed there. Yeah. Further, if you look at the anatomy,
6 inches long.
It's probably a little bit longer than that based on the size of the guts. But also, that's a shark tail that's been stitched onto whatever the rest of this is. And if you actually look for higher quality images of this, it's pretty clear that other than the shark tail and maybe that flipper, most of the body is actually something that looks like paper mache.
Yeah, what is this? Like, this is...
It's supposed to be the head.
It looks like a sock puppet.
Yeah, basically, right? It looks like it's a sock puppet made of paper mache, stitched onto a shark tail, that's been painted, and then a cut was made with a sharp tool, and chicken guts were pushed inside whilst coming out a little bit in order to create a hoax. It's just a hoax, and that's the surgeon photos.
Might be the most famous hoax photo of all time that has been acknowledged, I think, as a hoax. Like the people who made this photo were like, "This is a hoax. This is how we made the photo."
Right. So this is called the surgeon's photo, which is weird because it's actually attributed to a gynecologist, which isn't a surgeon normally. That's normally a different job, but whatever. I'm not going to nitpick here whether it's surgeon or whether gynecologists count as surgeons.
Maybe they're performing the totally non-problematic act of female circumcision.
I doubt it because this was Scotland, and that's not a big thing there.
Hopefully.
I mean, it's not. But yeah. So here's the thing, right? That photo has been said to be a hoax by the people who were associated with it and their family. It was created by basically having a toy submarine with a little bit on top that kind of looked like a head and being floated. And one of the things you'll notice is there's no way to tell the scale of this picture, right? Mm-hmm. Nothing is included, like trees or boats or anything. And it's a very small scale picture if the people who are claiming that they hoaxed it are to be believed. So, yeah, and of course, in the top right, that's just a 3D render of a plesiosaur.
Yeah.
It's not evidence of anything.
I have to say, in none of my science classes did it turn into like a cryptid show.
Well, here's the thing. I'll say this about cryptids. For me, they're the only really fun conspiracy theory because it's really hard to get from, like, maybe there's a plesiosaur in a Scottish lake, or maybe there's a big North American ape that no one knows about. It's hard to get from that to, therefore, we should get rid of the Jews, which is where almost all other conspiracy theories go. So I appreciate cryptozoology for being like the one non-anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
That's
yeah.
I mean, as somebody who has been on a show on this channel in this time slot, where Maya educated us about how the Hollow Earth conspiracy theory is just Nazis all the way down.
It is. It really is. Oh my God, it's so true.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I'm here to educate.
It's just fucking Nazis all over the place. God damn it.
That's
Flat
right,
Earth,
sideways.
Flat Earth has a lot of Nazis, but they're not. It's not all Nazis all the way down. Hollow Earth.
It's like 60% Nazis.
It's like, yeah, but like I chose my words. But Hollow Earth, like the people who don't know it's about Nazis, don't know yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is. It's a yet. Yeah, just wait till they start learning about Vril.
Oh God. I haven't really I've mentioned Vril, but we haven't gone into Vril.
Oh no,
I don't know Vril.
God,
I feel like I failed.
I'm sorry, Maya.
As a friend.
I'm sorry. Okay, we're doing a Vril episode, I guess.
We will. I gotta find the right I don't know. Maybe the next time you and I do something, we'll do a Vril. I know I've mentioned it a few times, but like we haven't gone into it. You're right.
The other thing this means is I just know way too much about all the conspiracy theories.
You really do. I'm so sorry.
Okay, yeah. And when I came into Vril, like they were like these super psychics that were, doing like showing the Russians where all the highly advanced people were inside the earth. I didn't understand it was all like Nazis until I got out of like the woo community, and I was just, and then.
Well, to be fair to Vril, the original novel it was based on was written before Nazis even existed. They just super liked it, and so now it's associated with Nazis. But originally, it was just super racist. It wasn't technically Nazi, which is. Is that better? Is it better to be super racist but not Nazi?
It's not worse.
I mean,
okay.
It's like, okay, I do prefer like the people who just hate black people over the ones who are trying to do the genocide, but like,
okay. I guess, I can
not
agree.
like it's not the front door.
Yeah,
we all know how Venn diagrams work, right?
Well, there's that too. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, which horrible ideology would I choose to be ruled by? I could make the choice. There are ones that are worse than others.
Oh, sure.
I'd rather not make the choice, but like, yeah, I can see how like plain old boring American white supremacy that isn't Nazi might be slightly preferable to Nazis, but like, it's kind of like saying like, hey, which kind of terminal cancer would you like? Could I just not
Is
make
one
that
like
choice?
less painful? Like, yeah, and
I mean,
you
yeah,
just start.
presumably
It's
one
like
is,
right. You know,
but that doesn't
yeah.
make it a good choice. I'd rather not have to make the choice.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right.
In Loch Ness, maybe that's a leftover example of a dinosaur. Remote
No.
fishing areas in parts of the world, swamps, all these areas have been unexplored.
This guy just
So it's
doesn't
really
know what a
not great.
dinosaur is. Got it.
No, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
That's the
well,
moral
I
of
mean,
the story, yeah.
to be fair, it's not like he's in a debate with somebody named like a dinosaur name, and that he also identifies himself personally under the moniker Dr. Dino. So, like, we can't expect this individual to know. For example, the answer to the question, if you found a fossil, how would you determine whether or not it was a dinosaur? That would be unfair. And it's not like we can immediately, off the top of our head, name a specific individual that does apply to. That very specific criticism that I just outlined, that they're in a debate with somebody about dinosaurs and they are named Dr. Dinosaur and they don't know how they would identify a fossil. Take it away, Dapper.
Yeah, so that's just me and Kent Hovind in our debate about whether birds are dinosaurs. And so here's the thing, right? Like, normally I would not expect this guy to know what a dinosaur is in a technical sense, and I wouldn't hold it against him either, right? Like,
you wouldn't expect either of us, for
yeah,
example.
honestly, yeah. If I asked either of you what a dinosaur was, I don't think you could give me a completely unambiguous and rigorous definition.
I
Yeah,
could
I'd probably just hold up a picture and be like, huh?
Yeah, and you might even be right about what you're
There's
holding up.
something about the number of holes in the skull, I think.
That is an important aspect.
See?
But the big
All I
difference,
got.
though, is that you two aren't going out trying to pretend that you have the knowledge to tell people not just about dinosaurs in general, but to inform them about how dinosaurs are still alive and whatnot. Like, that's not you guys.
No, no.
But
You're
So-
right about that. Oh, but like, did you guys ever hear Aaron Ra's Bigfoot story?
Oh, did they
Oh.
think that he was Bigfoot?
No, I don't.
Is that what happened? Was he out in the woods and somebody took a picture of
His
like
car
a big...
broke down and he had on like this big like furry coat. Yep. And it was cold, so it was zipped up. You know, he has a long black hair and he was trying to get somebody to take him home and he was just like,
knew it.
hey. And like cars are like speeding up to get past him. And I think he said like 2 or 3 days later in the newspaper, there were Bigfoot sightings. He was like, I got to be Bigfoot.
Actually, that does sound a little familiar. And
Right?
It's
And
hilarious.
And realistic.
No, yeah. I'm not even sure. I know I heard him tell it. It is hilarious. If you ever get a chance to talk to him, like ask him about it. It's great.
Also, like Aaron Ra is one of those people that
Aaron.
like it. You're right. I apologize. Aaron Ra is one of those people that if you're on a plane with him, and this has definitely happened, I 100% believe it, and you're like a really, really conservative, little old woman, who is scared of the outside world, and you get on the plane and you sit next to Aaron Ra, you're gonna be like,
Good luck to you.
oh god, what's gonna happen?
Look, the thing is, I was actually on a stream with Aaron Ra not that long ago on his channel, and I didn't remember that story, and I didn't ask about it. Now
He's
I feel
got a lot of stories.
True.
Wait, recently?
Not too long ago, I was on with Aaron Ra, Jackson Wheat, Gutsit Gibbon, and Professor Dave
What? Where was that?
on Aaron Ra's channel.
No way.
Wow.
How did I miss
Professor
that?
Dave is like the name that came out of nowhere there.
Yeah, I wasn't
so-
expecting that one.
well,
But
so
the rest of you I like a lot.
The commonality there is that we were all named specifically by Gunter Beckley of the Discovery Institute in an article that he published on their website. He called us all out by name, and so we had a stream about it.
Well done.
Because for some reason, Gunter Beckley decided to name all of us and talk about people like, he's like, people like Aaron Ra, Dapper Dinosaur, Gutsit Gibbon, Jackson Wheat, Dave Farina and their deplorable ilk, which is why part of my Twitter display name right now is Dapper Dinosaur parentheses deplorable ilk.
Well, yeah, but that's just, I mean, everything you guys bring up, all that does is bring unwelcome nuance.
Yes, it does. All right, let's finish this video. We got this. We got this.
Are you
Come
sure?
on, we can do it. We can do it. We can do
We
it.
only got like 2 minutes.
All right.
I'm gonna bring it. I'll pop the speed.
Yeah, 1.5. There we go. Yeah, we got this.
There we go.
To say the dinosaurs are extinct because we're certainly not 100% sure. And certainly there have been many species that have thought to be extinct of different kinds of animals, only to find out many years later they're actually still alive on planet Earth. One example is...
Is that true of species or is it true of clades? Just really quickly.
It's true of... okay, well, it depends on the time frame you're looking at, right? Like the black-footed ferret was thought to be extinct, but that was thought to be extinct in like the 20th century, right?
Yeah. I mean, long term, like
so
long extinct. Like nobody's ever met one.
If we're talking millions of years, the only thing that I can think of that might qualify as a species that was found to still be alive is the Wollemi pine, which is a pine that is native to Australia, and it, if I remember correctly, was thought to have been extinct a few million years ago. But it turns out it was like there were like a few dozen of them hiding in some grove in the middle of nowhere, Australia.
I see. Okay.
So other than that. Not that I can think of.
Like the coelacanth is the obvious one, but that's like a clade, and even or a pretty broad one probably.
I think it's like roughly similar to like the level of like order or something like that. Like it's not a very specific designation.
Yeah. Okay.
The bush dog that they thought had been extinct for thousands of years, it's still alive on planet Earth. The coelacanth fish, they thought it was extinct.
Okay, well, hold on. Coelacanth. Now, here's the thing. I don't actually know whether or not that's true of the bush dog, right?
Yeah. I've never heard of a bush dog.
They're a South American canid. They're absolutely adorable. They're closely related to the crab-eating fox, the short-eared dog, and the maned wolf.
They remind me of wolverines, but that's a totally different. That's
convergent. Yeah. So I don't know that they were thought to be extinct. I'm not going to contest it. That seems like a perfectly plausible idea. I just don't know if that's true. But that's another thing. Is like thousands of years and millions of years are very different. And when he talked about the coelacanth, the thing is, so modern coelacanths are in the family Latimeridae, and they're in the genus Latimeria. We don't know of any such animals from the fossil record. They're actually very different from the fossil coelacanths that we do know about, right? So all the fossil coelacanths that we know about are, for one, most of them are much, much larger, and two, they're pretty much exclusively freshwater organisms that live in shallow water. Whereas the coelacanth that we have alive today is living in deep under the ocean. And you know what's a particularly inhospitable part of the planet to humans?
Deep under the ocean?
Yes, it's one of the most hostile places to humans. It is easier in many ways to live in Antarctica than it is to live at the bottom of the ocean. That's why there are more Antarctic bases than bottom of the ocean bases. And like, if you wanted to hide an organism, there is no better place than the bottom of the ocean to hide it. But the thing is, we can't use that excuse for dinosaurs. They didn't live at the bottom of the ocean, I promise. None of them.
Well, certainly not with that attitude.
Well, okay, there's a few problems. One, dinosaurs breathe air, so they can't just stay at the bottom of the ocean, right? Like, you could argue that sperm whales are a deep-sea marine mammal, but they come up to the surface to breathe, and they also sleep near the surface, which, by the way, is super eerie and weird. You can actually see footage of, like, a pod of sperm whales sleeping with their face, with their, like, their head is pointed towards the surface, and their tail is pointed down, and because they're neutrally buoyant, they just hang in the water column just under the surface, sleeping. It's kind of creepy, honestly.
Do they have to breathe while they sleep?
I
Probably
don't know.
Not.
So I know that dolphins actually only sleep about half their brain at a time, and they use the sort of active half to surface periodically while they're sleeping. I don't know if it's the same thing for sperm whales. So,
but they might not need to, because I mean, how long do they hold their breath when they're going for squid? Right, like a long time.
It varies. At maximum, it's a few hours, but more typically, it's about 45 minutes.
Okay, I thought. Okay, that's fair. I thought it was longer than that.
They also have.
I thought it was like normally a few hours.
No, that's towards like the extreme end. But they also have like weirdly collapsible rib cages to avoid the problems with like pressure, like collapsing their lungs and whatnot. Like their rib cages actually like compress, and that helps prevent things like the bends. I looked into this once, and it's like
they got
biology-
origami, and they have like origami anatomy.
Yeah, like the sperm whales have some of the craziest anatomy of any animal that I've ever heard about. But anyway, so yeah, like you're not going to have deep sea dinosaurs hiding from people, right? And coelacanths being, you know, a water breathing fish, yeah, it's a bit different. The sperm whale thing is honestly it really is. Like if you dove underwater and then suddenly you were surrounded by sleeping sperm whales, that would be like thalassophobia on like stimulants. Like I'm gonna pass on that.
Sperm whales, though, of all whales, that like I wouldn't necessarily want them to be awake. Like they're not nice, are they?
So, I mean, if you're hunting them, no. But I don't know of any unprovoked attacks by sperm whales on humans.
Being all up in their jock when they're sleeping can be considered an unprovoked attack, though.
I don't know, maybe.
Right.
I'm just not aware of any violence from sperm whales against humans that wasn't associated with like whaling. So,
if only they weren't smart enough to know we were trying to kill them.
Well, most of us aren't. It's pretty much just the Japanese at this point.
Okay.
Right, come on.
They thought it was extinct 65 million years ago. Turns out it's still alive on Earth today. So, is it possible there are still dinosaurs living on Earth today? I think it's possible. Last thing, number 3, I believe dinosaurs in various forms are still with us today. Giant reptiles. And by the way, that is your keyword, reptiles.
No.
But
that's our keyword, is reptiles.
Okay, I'll remember that.
Okay.
Giant reptiles like the mammoth-sized alligators that we see, different types of lizards, snakes, amphibians.
No. Okay, look. Dinosaur is a specific group of organisms, and they are reptiles, and many of them were big, although far from all. But you can't simply point to a large reptile and say that because there were large reptilian dinosaurs, therefore any large reptile is a dinosaur. Dinosaurs have a specific anatomy that is not present in alligators, crocodiles,
It used to be very
monitor lizards. None of these organisms actually have the anatomy to be to be dinosaurs. They do have snakes, and lizards are lizards, obviously. But no, like Dinosauria is defined by certain anatomical features, and these organisms do not have it. I don't care how big they are. If you showed me a Komodo dragon the size of like Rhode Island, it's not a dinosaur.
So, I mean, you keep saying this. Just, for the people who don't know, what makes a dinosaur a dinosaur?
So there's a whole long list. I'm not going to go through all of it because it would take too long, but I'll give you some highlights, right?
Thank you.
So one is that the hip socket, or the acetabulum, is what's called extensively perforate or open, which basically means if you were holding a dinosaur hip in your hands and you looked through the hip socket, you could see clear through to the other hip socket and out the hip, right?
Okay.
There are a few dinosaurs that secondarily close their hip sockets as adults, like ankylosaurs, but they still developed the extensively perforate acetabulum at first. So that's why. Well, that's one of the reasons why we know they're still dinosaurs. There's also the femoral head, because of the lateral direction of the acetabulum or hip socket. The femoral head is distinctly offset from the shaft at almost a 90-degree angle in most dinosaurs, which is actually something they share superficially in common with humans. Humans also have a somewhat similar hip arrangement. They are also archosaurs, so they have all the archosaur traits, which, other than the crocodiles, nothing he's mentioned have. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to super get into that. They also have a asymmetrical shape for the fourth trochanter, which is a projection on the femur or the thigh bone that connects to to a muscle on the tail called the caudofemoralis longus. Mm-hmm. So that's particularly asymmetrical. There is a particular shape to the astragalus and calcaneum, which are ankle bones, which I'm not going to get into, but that's a thing. There's also a depression towards the back of the skull that I don't want to get too detailed in. There are a number of other things, like there's the deltopectoral crest is uniquely shaped among dinosaurs. There's a whole host of anatomical features. and I've just given some of the highlights. And even then, it's for non-experts. It's going to be hard to assess these things, right? Because that's why we have experts, right? Because these are very simple things to figure out, but we can figure them out with enough study. And animals like crocodilians and lizards don't have these. Being a reptile is not enough to be a dinosaur. Just like being a reptile isn't enough to be a turtle, right?
Right.
Is a Komodo dragon a turtle?
No.
No. It's very obvious that it's not.
Got it right.
Woohoo!
But it's a reptile. Okay, cool. If you want to say reptiles aren't extinct, I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly. They're very obviously not extinct. There's lots of them. I have a
Are
whole
they
bunch.
I even know that.
Are reptiles taxonomically well defined?
As long as you associate reptile with a sauropsid. Well, yeah, sauropsid is pretty.
They're compared to fish. Are fish taxonomically well defined?
No. If fish means anything, it just means vertebrate.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there like even a... I'm not going to go into that. Anyways, I have to sleep at some point today. For $2, Doc Dino says, can confirm this dino has holy hips.
There you go.
And also, Doc Dino reminds everyone that we should all look at Dapper's debate with Kent Hovind for the full dino diagnosis.
Oh, it's not quite full. I do leave a few things out that are also diagnostic features of dinosaurs, but it's pretty complete, and I have diagrams to show what I'm talking about in that one.
So, I mean, it's pretty much just like 2 hours of you handing Ken his ass, right?
Yeah, basically.
I mean, we're going in hour 4, so, there's that.
We are not.
Lizards,
We are
snakes,
not. We're
amphibians,
finishing
all
this
these-
up and getting the fuck off.
We literally
All right,
are.
play quick.
Types of things that are huge in various places of the world. My opinion and the opinion and theory of many creation scientists is that they are the smaller ancestors of what were the massive dinosaurs that used to be very common on planet Earth.
First,
So,
you mean descendant, not ancestor.
Yeah. I've made that mistake. It's like a word thing.
Okay, look, I'll just chalk that up to a misspeak, which
Yeah.
whatever. People misspeak. It's fine. I don't think this guy is confused about what those words mean. But
Hopefully.
here's the thing.
I don't know. Like, he's clearly reading a script.
Is
Dapper.
Mhm.
Roger is the mascot of our channel. We've covered Roger more than anybody else by a lot
Look,
on our channel.
Unlike most creationists, I just can't hate Roger. He's just adorable.
We clearly do not hate Roger.
Of last week, we have a new goal, which is to set him up with Gina. I don't think you've covered Gina.
Oh, I haven't, but I know about
Gina.
her. Yeah,
exactly. And Roger and Gina, I mean,
it's a match made in heaven.
Exactly.
All right. Mud Fossil University. Yeah, that's the Mud Fossil University.
Exactly.
I lost my train of thought. Just hit play. It's fine.
There's still dinos today? Well, I guess that really depends on how you define dinosaur. We know that God created them all, and He created us in His image. He did it in the creation week, and we're so thankful for God's goodness. Until next week, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for all.
That's it. All right, so if you define dinosaur the way anyone who knows what they're talking about defines dinosaur, then the only dinosaurs that we still have any evidence for existing right now are birds. And that's it, right? There's nothing else to say about it. The only dinosaurs.
In colloquial speech, that's not what people mean. We all accept that.
Right. If you mean there are non-avian dinosaurs alive today, there just aren't. And Komodo dragons aren't dinosaurs. Alligators and crocodiles aren't dinosaurs. Komodo dragons aren't dinosaurs, right? It takes more to be a dinosaur than just be a larger than normal reptile.
So you mean there's not a plesiosaur that in Loch Ness that also teleports to Lake Michigan?
Well, not only is there not that, but even if there were, it still wouldn't be a dinosaur because, again, plesiosaurs are closer to turtles than they are to dinosaurs.
I totally understand, but they are not dinosaurs, which means that they could teleport from Loch Ness to Lake Michigan, and we did a video on that. I want to say last November. Bree was there.
I don't think that I necessarily agree that they were teleporting around, but you know what? Why not?
Exactly. Why not?
I want to. Well, actually, Bree was able to debunk it, but what does Bree know?
She knows a lot about bugs.
A lot, and she knows
a lot about cryptids. She has her own show. She calls it Cryptid Corner. It comes on every Friday night. High
Look,
five.
like I said, to me, cryptids are a lot of fun. I like cryptids. I don't believe that there are real organisms out there that you could go find, for the most part, at least. Like maybe a few are. I don't know.
Ooh,
Not
are
not
Kent
any of
Hogan
the,
and Ken Ham dinosaurs?
not in the taxonomic sense. In the like figurative sense, then yeah, sure, maybe. In the sense of like being an outdated relic of the past, which, by the
There,
way, is an offensive way to refer to characterize dinosaurs, but I'll let it go for now.
From
whereas
Loveline, you are not a dinosaur.
who
However, um,
Dapper is.
Yeah, I am.
chicken are dinosaurs.
Chickens are dinosaurs. It's true.
We've got two dinos
So one person
on
got
hand
something
here.
right. Woof.
We've
We've
got
learned
Dapper
so much
here,
from you, Dapper.
and
Thank you.
we also have the ironically named Dr. Dino, or I don't know if he's still here.
He was not too long ago.
But
But
yeah.
yeah, 3 hours is a long time.
Anjur is correct. Bree is a very smart person, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yep. I've
Kilo Charlie wants to know if nuclear cockroaches are safe to eat. I would go out on a limb and say no. It just
yeah,
sounds
no, I
wrong,
wouldn't.
but
So the only context in which that makes sense is in the video game series Fallout, and they're totally going to up your rads. So like
Yeah.
not
yeah.
ideal, but like if you're poisoned or something and you're losing HP, you might have to make a sacrifice.
Yeah. Plus, if you have enough rat away, then who cares?
Exactly.
Fair enough.
But none of that's real, except for
Maybe
in a very important video game.
One of the like more obscure memes on my channel is that frequently when I refer to chimpanzees in a situation where I would put a picture of a chimpanzee on screen,
Mhm.
instead I put up a picture of Ken Ham. Because holy crap, is that the most chimp-looking guy I have ever seen?
Yeah, he kind of is though.
He
You're right.
really is. He looks like a freaking chimpanzee while sitting there telling us how evolution is fake. It's like, my guy, you look like
Yeah.
you're 60% chimpanzee. What are you talking about?
All right, Dapper, would you like to tell us who you are, where you are, and what you have coming up this week?
I am Dapper Dinosaur. You can find me on either of my channels. I have my main channel, Dapper Dinosaur. I have my second channel, Top Hats Off. Let's see, what is coming up this week? So on Tuesday, I have, right now I'm planning Jackson with Jackson. I got to make sure I double check with Jackson, but because I haven't done that yet. But that is the plan. We will in Jackson with Jackson, we take a look at the nonsense spouted by Charles Jackson, Dr. Charles Jackson, young Earth creationist.
Oh my god, dude! His takes on star formation, but I have begged before to like come on and like be part of some of those streams, and you can't let me on. I'll lose it. I'll just lose it. It'll be bad TV.
Well, in that case, the answer will be no. Then on Thursday, I have. Let me double check to make sure I get the right thing that's coming up. 1 second. I have Andrew Snelling, a lying liar who lies. That is
apropos.
Yeah, it is. So, in case you don't know, Andrew Snelling is a geologist, PhD, who does work for Answers in Genesis. He did previously actually work for mineral exploration companies in Australia, and he has published actual papers in which he just uses standard geochronology techniques and reports normal ages. So he knows better, and also he's been caught doing some extremely blatant lying. My favorite one was he, in a quote-unquote paper for a creationist blog, which they call a journal, he said that there were no stress fractures in some folded sediment, and he provided a picture of the folded sediment that didn't have any apparent large-scale cracks. Of course, the problem is
a lot of people?
It did have a lot of people. And if you look at the high-quality USGS pictures of the exact same bit of folded sediment, you find out that, interestingly enough, there are, in fact, large-scale stress fractures, aka cracks, exactly where he had people standing in his photo, which is weird. You know,
that's weird.
That's kind of suspicious.
My chair does not have a giant T in the middle of it, you guys. It absolutely, totally does not have a giant T. in the middle of it. That's not
Exactly.
a true thing. Okay, like I would never
Mhm.
ever be like that.
Yeah, you would never lie to us about that. So that's going to be Thursday. That'll be at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Then on Friday, over on my second channel, I will be doing episode 2 of my Star Trek show called Star Trek Lexington, which features some other YouTubers, including Cheshire Vic, if you know who she is, Jordan from Reason to Doubt, the guy who has all those videos about the Shroud of Turin, as
So
well
many.
as FTFE, or Craig from the channel FTFE. We also have a number of other people who are just people who I have played games with before and who are people who watch my channel. So that's on Thursday. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Then on Saturday, right now, my plan is to take a look at a video with Dr. Robert.
Carter?
Hold on. Yeah, Robert Carter. I was about to say
Nailed
conflate
it.
him with Brian Thomas, but they're different guys. So Robert Carter is talking to us about why there are no human fossils in the so-called flood rocks, even though there were humans alive before the flood, according to him. And so that is with Grayson Hawk.
Oh, Grayson, yeah.
Yeah,
He's been
yeah.
on here 2 or 3 times.
Yep. So he has his own channel too.
Mhm.
So yeah, that
Recently
is
renamed, so
yes,
he might
to
be
his
dealing
name.
with that. So yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
It's
You know, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen him tonight. Normally he comes by the last half, but
you
oh
know,
well.
sometimes people are busy.
Sometimes.
Um. So yeah, that's on Saturday, and then on the following Tuesday, it should be a Kent with Bent, where I take a look at the nonsense from Kent Hovind, along with my good friend Bent Hovind, no relation.
What's a flood rock?
So a flood rock is a rock that is purported to have been formed or deposited during Noah's flood.
Like the chalk cliffs of Dover.
Yes, they are supposed to have been flood rocks, which is very impossible, but whatever. Now, there is a real thing that you could call a flood
Flood
rock.
rocks are rocks that were created during the flood.
Yeah, so you could also those characterize flood rocks that are, rocks that are actually made in real floods. You know, things like, turbidites and graded bedding and whatnot. You could
Sure.
also call those flood rocks, but that's
But
not
we
what
don't.
creationists normally mean. And yeah, we don't normally call them that. We call them more descriptive and useful names.
What do they think are flood rocks?
Basically anything from the Ediacaran until at least the end of the Cretaceous, and in some cases all the way into like
So all rocks, regardless of type,
uh,
created in
Until
that period?
after KT.
maybe except volcanic rocks. They might make exceptions for that and say that they were formed during the flood, but not by the flood.
Yeah, which I'll give them that. That's a fair distinction.
I don't know
Yeah.
how you do this. Like, I have a low tolerance for people who are insulting my intelligence.
You're a lot less white than my headcanon for what Dapper is.
Well, first, being a dinosaur, I have managed to escape all human racial categories, but my human suit does seem pretty white.
Because Dapper, you and my weasel colony that operates this suit got our human suit from the same manufacturer.
Yeah.
Highly advanced. People don't understand how advanced the human suit is.
So here's a fun thing. So some Republican canvassers came to the door like a couple weeks ago, and they were trying to tell me how terrible all the immigration from Mexico is.
Constantly.
When I said, my family got to this country illegally, they did not know what to do with that because they're looking at like my human suit, because that's how I answered the door to avoid, like scaring people off and whatnot.
Also the CIA. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that too. And the USGS.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but
we've all seen ET. We know what happens to exotic morphology.
But they're looking at someone who looks like he could as he might as well have grown up in like Northern Europe, right? Like,
right.
I'm pretty pale. I have straight hair.
Oh, yeah, you're not here to take their jobs or, do things with their women.
Obviously. And so I'm like, okay, but like, my family's here because of illegal immigration, and they're like, well, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like the genealogy studies, right? Like my great grandfather came over as a literal stowaway on a cargo ship.
That is
Pretty
so
sure he was an
cool.
illegal immigrant. And they did not know what to do with that. They were just like, but what about the cultural changes? And I'm like, what specifically? What specific cultural aspect of Mexican immigration should I be worried about? And I'm like pointing things out. I'm like, is it like folk Catholicism that I should be worried about? Like people praying to quote unquote unofficial saints? Is that what I should be worried about? Should I be worried about like more empanadas and tacos at restaurants?
Do you have a Ring doorbell camera that captured all of this so we can
No,
watch it?
unfortunately, I don't.
Oh,
What
that
they-
would be
Oh my
amazing.
god! Fail after fail after fail.
I know. Here's
Wait, we've got to, Bandit. We've got to get dapper a camera crew.
okay.
Yeah.
So what they came up with though was like they play their music loudly, and I was like, okay, bye. That was their best response was Mexicans play their music too loudly.
Have you met teenagers? It
Right.
doesn't matter what race.
Yeah, I pointed out
Which
like
is the real thing.
I pointed
Right.
out, did you know
But,
that
Bandit, you
noise
don't
ordinances are a
understand.
thing?
They're brown. They may as well be black.
Right.
I've
exactly.
watched a lot of true crime videos, and my fundamental worry is, as a white man that is also named Michael, is that I'm going to end up doing one of the bad things that one of the other Michaels did at a gas station.
Well,
And they all make you
I
look
mean,
bad.
we really should be more concerned about you than the illegals from
I mean, yeah.
Mexico.
I mean, yeah, you should be. The white people are a lot more dangerous than
by numbers.
numbers. Numbers.
Raw
Also,
numbers.
you know,
So yeah, I pointed out that noise ordinances are a thing, by the way, and they were like, "But what if they voted to change the noise ordinances?" And I was like, "Well, then the community doesn't think
You
that's a
should be
noise
going door
ordinance."
to door for that.
Yeah, canvas about noise ordinances. Like, look, if someone playing like mariachi music too loud at like 10 a.m. is your big concern, canvas about noise ordinances. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
the type
Yeah,
of
it
music
was-
is also not relevant. Like if they're playing, like if you're only complaining about non-Christian
No.
music, and there's a lot of really loud Christian music, I'm gonna go, screw
That
you.
is not what they're complaining about. You know it.
I
They're
know, 'cause they hate
brown.
brown people.
They
hate
may as
brown
well be
people.
black.
Right.
That was their point.
I get it.
There's somebody here standing in a white man suit that doesn't understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
Despite the wink winks and the nod nods.
No, I think Vandy gets it.
I get it. Okay, and my ancestors didn't get it, and you're never gonna let me forget that. But
no, but you don't understand, Dapper. Look, I
had
come from a
slave
proud
owning ancestors.
group of
Yeah.
of like and this is true. Slaves. Like,
Yeah.
I'm an American black person. You will never believe.
That's what I would have assumed.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I can't believe you're so smart. I wouldn't have believed you guessed that. Yes, indeed.
Right. That's,
And I bet
it was
you
a
also
mystery
cannot
until
tell.
you said it.
Bet you also cannot tell that one of my ancestors was also a slave owner.
Oh no, that's so surprising.
Yeah, no,
You and like every
I,
other
too, was
African American.
And hopefully
yeah,
they didn't have that last name,
so
but it's possible.
my ancestors hail from Mississippi and Louisiana. So they were
My ancestors
enslaved
hail from
in
Alabama.
those two states. Now, here's what happened. Vandy is descended from rich white people who,
Oh,
you will never believe it, owned slaves.
Would you believe that the Jemison Vandergraff Mansion was the first house on the west side or the east side, one of the sides of the Alabama state that had indoor plumbing?
In Alabama,
sure.
which is really close to Mississippi and Louisiana. Therefore, his ancestors own my ancestors. He is my little cousin, and he owes me reparations. And
There you
that's
go.
how all of that works.
I will say,
That's
my
how-
obviously my dinosaur ancestors, like never participated in any of these institutions, but it was nice to know that among my adoptive human parents, there were also no identifiable slave owners. So that was nice.
Hey, you think you're better than me? You're not descended from slave owners?
No, it was just nice to not have that baggage in the family tree.
Oh, he loves that.
Yeah. It's look,
That was such an impossible bullshit thing to respond to. It was
instead
better than me. What
in-
are we supposed to do with that?
Instead, most of my ancestry is people who were actively being oppressed by the British Empire at various points. But
As were mine.
Yeah, they
Right.
better than the Americans at oppressing people. The British. I mean, I'll
also,
die on that
Fuck
hill.
those guys in particular.
some
all
of my
should.
ancestors were also being oppressed by Americans who were like, "Nah, you should probably get out of the country." And then also, among the relatively small part of my ancestry that was just part of the British Empire, it includes the sheriff who presided over the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots. So one of my ancestors killed a British monarch, which I consider to be a mark of pride.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Highly impressive.
Yeah. So when it comes to ancestry, I feel like I sort of hit like a lottery that way, because I'm like, sure, I get to pass myself off as like the pastiest white guy ever, but also I get to avoid the like, oh, well, your ancestors were doing the worst things imaginable. Like, not really. And even the ones who were like actually English, I mean, one of them killed one of the British monarchs. Like, you know, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. As an anti-monarchist, I appreciate this.
No,
pretty
yes.
hardcore.
I want to thank you for your service in a whole different way. God.
Right?
Yeah.
Al, we all appreciate you for staying awake and manning bingo for us.
Well, it helps when I'm on West Coast time.
Oh, yeah. No, it's 1 a.m. I'm ending the goddamn show. Dapper, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'll probably reach out in 10 months.
Yeah, make it a little bit shorter. It can be 11 or 10 months next time.
All right. But thank you so much.
you.
Vandy, you got anything coming up?
I do not.
All right. So everybody, next week we have Chris, the Morning Atheist, coming on. Hope to see you all back. And don't forget to vote and bring a friend.
Yes, and vote early. You can vote early. That's a thing you can do.
That is totally a thing you can do.
As a person from the Chicagoland area of Illinois, vote early and vote often.
There you go. By which we mean every time there is an election, vote once. Obviously.
You should vote as many times as you can get away with.
Oh my God. Get out of here.
I do not